Chapter 61. Fu Yunruo walked out and saw a tall man standing at the entrance of the main entrance. His black windbreaker was blowing in the wind and swaying gently. Mr. Yu. Fu Yun could not hide her surprise when she saw who it was. Yu. Why was he here? Could it be that he heard that they had moved to the capital and specially came to visit? But she did not hear the security department inform her. Before she could ask, Sayu said, I saw your figures just now. I thought I was mistaken, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect it to be you. Don't tell me you live here too. Fu Yun was even more surprised. She had been to the villa several times and occasionally saw the residents in the neighborhood, but she had never seen Sayu. Sayu pointed to the villa next door. That's where I live. That's really a coincidence. You moved here? Sayu looked inside. It's really a coincidence. Yes. Ever since Sayu left the village, they rarely contacted each other. Fu Yun saw his news on the internet and knew that he spent most of his time abroad and seemed to be very busy. Even Yuan Xin was so busy that he could not care about Wen, so she did not let Wen disturb them. Fortunately, Wen was also sensible. After Fu Yun explained, she did not often talk about contacting Sayu. Only when she received a gift from Sayu on Wen's 4th birthday did she know that he still missed Wen. Fu Yun reacted and quickly turned to the side. Come in and sit. She brought Sayu into the house. When saw Sayu, she had a big reaction. She immediately threw her luggage aside and ran over with her short legs. She hugged Sayu's thigh. Uncle Yu, I missed you so much. Why did you only come to find me now? Uncle misses Wen too. Sayu was in a good mood when he saw that Wen still remembered him. He bent down and picked up the child. Feeling his sturdy weight, he pinched his rounder cheeks with one hand. Wen, you've gained weight. Sayu shook her head. Yes, she's really well nourished. Wen, who was originally overjoyed and excited, he twisted his chubby little buttocks and struggled to get up from the ground. He bounced over to Fu Yunruo's side, his round little back view nudging Sayu. Humph, he was angry. She called him fat the moment they met. Did he not want to lose face? Besides, he wasn't fat. It was because he had worn too many clothes. He will lose weight in the summer. Fu Yun facepalmed. Mr. Yu was really something else. What was Wen taboo about? Why did he have to bump into her? However, Fu Yunruo rarely interfered with Wen's interactions with others, so she didn't say anything. Sayu smiled, then greeted Uncle Guo and the others. When Kai Wei Cheng heard Sayu say that he lived here, he was puzzled. He remembered that Sayu didn't live here. However, when he thought about how Sayu had been famous for so many years, it was normal for him to buy a few properties. It was also normal for him to take turns living here. Uncle Guo snorted at Sayu and said to Kai Wei Cheng in a rough voice, hurry up and pack up. Kai Wei Cheng smiled apologetically at Sayu, then hurriedly carried Uncle Guo's luggage into his room. Fu Yunruo poured a glass of water for Sayu and cleared out a spot on the sofa for him to sit. She said apologetically, I'm sorry. I just moved in, so it's a little messy. It's my fault for causing trouble for you. Sayu looked at Wen, who had been following Fu Yunruo around. The little girl was obviously still angry. She faced him with the back of her head, but her little eyes secretly glanced at him from time to time. Although Sayu hadn't contacted them for almost half a year, he was busy until late at night. When he took a breather and rested, someone would report to him about their movements. Sayu had participated in a variety show for a period of time, so he didn't manage much of the company's affairs. There was a huge backlog of work, and there were also a lot of things to do in the entertainment industry. Later on, there were some internal problems, so he went abroad to deal with it personally. Before he could take a breather, it was the busiest time of the year. He was so busy that he had to work overtime in the middle of the night. After the new year, he finally settled everything and could stand here. Sayu coaxed Wen in a gentle voice, Wen is not fat at all. I was wrong. Wen, please forgive me. When heard Sayu's apology, she climbed down the ladder and said generously, it's okay. I forgive you. Okay. As an apology, I'll help Wen pack your luggage, okay? Wen's eyes lit up when he heard this. He nodded continuously. Okay. He welcomed free labor. Wen immediately pulled Sai Yu towards the huge pile of luggage. Uncle Yu, these are my things. Fu Yunruo was speechless. Wen was really too insensible. How could he let his guest do things? He had to teach him a lesson when there was no one else around. Wen proudly directed Sai Yu to move the luggage. To do things, Sai Yu took off his windbreaker and suit jacket, revealing a slim waistcoat and well-ironed trousers. Fu Yunruo couldn't help but take a few more glances and admire him. Mr. Yu was really a very charming man. He didn't know what kind of perfect woman could stand by his side. Fu Yunruo and Wen's rooms were on the second floor. Uncle Guo's room was on the first floor. Qian Shengnan's room was also on the first floor. The villa had 2.5 floors. There were 3 rooms on the first floor and 3 rooms on the second floor. As there were many people in the house, Fu Yunruo converted the piano room and gym on the first floor into bedrooms. The study on the second floor was still intact. There was also a leisure area for the children to play in. Wen carried his small luggage and ran upstairs. He pushed open the door to a room, and the interior design with a sky blue theme suddenly appeared before his eyes. There was a beige wardrobe, matching children's books, tables, and chairs. The large bed against the wall was covered with a quilt cover with a blue sky and white clouds pattern. There was a photo frame on the bedside table. It was a photo of Wen and Fu Yunruo. It was the same on the study table. There were several photo frames in an orderly manner. There were photos of Wen when he was 1 month old, 1 year old, and 2 years old. There were sky blue curtains hanging on the bright windows. When he opened the curtains and looked out, he could see the beautiful scenery in the courtyard. This was a children's room, but it wasn't childish at all. Wen was immediately pleasantly surprised. His eyes sparkled, and he felt that everything about this room was to his liking. Wen turned and ran out. Fu Yunruo happened to come up with a suitcase. Wen immediately ran over and pulled her hand to the room. Mom, did you decorate this room for me? Fu Yunruo smiled. Yes, baby, do you like it? Yes. In order to prove that he liked it very much, he nodded heavily. I love Mom the most. Mom also loves baby the most. Fu Yunruo saw Wen's happy smile and felt that she had been affirmed. She was also very happy. All the hard work she had put in previously was worth it. Fu Yunruo looked up and saw Sai Yu standing in front of the study table. He was holding a photo frame and looking at it. Noticing the movements of the mother and son, he casually put it back and smiled slightly. Wen was really cute when he was young. Of course, Wen said proudly. From the moment he was born, he was the most beautiful child in the village. Yes, in the future, he would be the most beautiful child in the entire capital. Fu Yunruo was even happier than being praised. Sai Yu saw that Fu Yunruo still wanted to move the luggage, so he said, "Leave this to me. Wen's room still needs to be tidied up, right? You can stay in the room and tidy it up. It'll be faster if we split up the work." Sai Yu pointed at the 2 luggage bags that he had brought up. Fu Yunruo thought about it and felt that it made sense. She stayed in Wen's room first and prepared to put the things away. Wen had a lot of clothes. Most of the clothes that she could not wear were given to the children in the village. She only kept some that she could not bear to give away, such as the sweater, shoes, and hats that Auntie Mai had personally knitted. She wanted to keep them for her collection. The rest were the clothes that she needed to wear now. There were quite a lot of clothes. Just the winter clothes alone took up 3 big bags. Fu Yunruo tidied up the clothes and hung them in the wardrobe. Fortunately, the wardrobe was very big. She specially chose a bigger wardrobe and hung the clothes that needed to be hung up. She folded the clothes that needed to be folded and put them away. This tidying up took a lot of time. Sai Yu had already gone up and down several times and moved the things from the first floor to the second floor. Fu Yunruo tidied up Wen's clothes and placed some of his toys on the bookshelf. She also placed some children's books. In a short while, the somewhat empty house was decorated with a lively atmosphere. As soon as Fu Yunruo walked out, the corridor on the second floor was already filled with luggage. She was shocked. Sayu said, "I don't know where you want to put these things. They've all been moved up." The things were all wrapped up properly. Sayu Ruo did not know what they were and did not open them to take a look. Qian Shengnan and Tian Tian had also finished tidying up and walked up at this moment. Fu Yunruo said, "Move these into my room." As the person who had personally tidied up the things, Fu Yunruo had a rough idea of what was inside. She carried a bag into the master bedroom. Qian Shengnan did not say anything and immediately moved the other luggage into Fu Yunruo's room. Sayu could not enter Fu Yunruo's room, so he did not interfere. He pointed to a luggage bag by his feet and asked, "Where do you want to move this?" Wen casually looked at it. He remembered that this bag was filled with his things, and they were. Wen's eyes darted around. "There's no need for these. Uncle Yu, help me put them in the storage room." There was a storage room in the backyard for miscellaneous items. Sayu saw Wen's eyes darting around and knew that there was something fishy going on. He was curious about the things inside and picked up the luggage. His hand accidentally touched the zipper, and it opened with a whoosh. A thick photo album fell out. "I dropped it." Sayu put down the bag and picked up the photo album. Wen saw that Sayu seemed to want to open it to take a look and immediately panicked. "Don't look." Sayu saw Wen's nervous expression and became even more curious. Hence, he opened it to take a look. Wen stood in front of Sayu and jumped with all her might. She shouted fiercely, "Give it back to me, don't look." Wen jumped for a long time but could only jump as high as Sayu's waist. Her small arms and legs could not reach the height of the photo album at all. She might as well go all the way. She pounced on Sayu and started climbing up his pants. Fortunately, Sayu's pants were of good quality and he was wearing a belt today, so he did not have to worry about them being pulled down. Sayu stared at the photo album for a long time and could not take his eyes off it. Then, he looked at Wen, who was climbing up like a tree trunk. Sayu sighed. It's good to have a daughter. She was soft and cute. She wore a pink dress and looked like a beautiful little princess. Wen was speechless. Chapter 62. Was he mocking him? Wen was struck by lightning. He couldn't believe it. Not only did he peek at his dark history, he even mocked him for looking like a girl. Fu Yunruo heard the commotion and walked out. When she saw Wen and Mr. Yu, she asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Wen climbed down and turned to run towards Fu Yunruo. However, before he could run, he was grabbed by the back of his collar. His entire body was suspended in the air. His short legs alternated a few times as he ran on the spot. Sayu carried Wen and smiled at Fu Yunruo. "It's nothing. We're just playing." Fu Yunruo glanced at Wen. Seeing that he was angry but did not refute, she smiled and returned to her room to continue tidying up. When they were gone, Sayu said to Wen, "Little tattletale. It's not manly to look for your mother every time you have a problem." Wen said righteously, "I'm still young. It was normal to look for one's mother if there was a problem." Sayu looked at the big bag with the zipper open with interest, as if he wanted to see what else was inside. Wen. He quickly rushed over and pressed his small body against the opening. "Don't look," he shouted fiercely. His mother was too much. She could have thrown these things away, but she still brought them all over. One day, he would secretly throw them away. If they were all photos of the little guy, Sayu wanted to continue looking. He even thought that with such a big bag, he could give a part of it to him for collection in the future. Fu Yunruo didn't stay in the room for long. She wanted to tidy up the study room and other areas outside first before tidying up her own room slowly. After she came out, she quickly found out the reason for Wen and Sayu's battle of wits and courage. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, for the sake of the little kid's face, she pretended not to know. Otherwise, she couldn't bear to see the little kid cry and throw them away. These were all memories that were worth treasuring. Fu Yun kept a portion of the photos on the bookshelf in her room, and the rest were placed on the tall bookshelf in the study room. The thick photo albums were neatly arranged. If he hadn't brought a ladder, Even Sai Yu wouldn't have been able to reach those items. Wen was satisfied. Although it was not in the warehouse, it was almost the same as being in the warehouse. Unless one went to look for it, it would be dusty. Unknowingly, he was busy all the way until night fell before he finally finished packing up. The large living room was restored to its original tidiness and cleanliness. The originally spacious house instantly became warm and full of life. Fu Yun and the others were so tired that they did not want to move at all. They did not manage to buy any groceries either, so they ordered takeout. Although it was takeout, it was recommended by Sai Yu. It was affordable and tasted good. Everyone, who had been so tired that they didn't have much of an appetite, finished the entire table of takeout food. After that, everyone did not stay for long. After Fu Yun repeatedly thanked them, they all took their leave. Sai Yu's house was next door, so he stayed for the last. Uncle Guo was old after all. He had rushed for 3 days and had been busy the entire day. Although he had been directing people, at this moment, he could not take it anymore and went back to his room to rest. Wen, who had one-sidedly thrown a tantrum twice, stuck to Sai Yu's side at this moment. It was unknown what Sai Yu said, but she laughed heartily. When saw Fu Yun, she hurriedly asked her to come over and wait for Fu Yun to sit on the sofa in the other direction. Fu Yun was free at this moment. I haven't congratulated you on winning the International Best Actor Award. Congratulations. At the Triennial International Film Festival before the new year, Sai Yu's movie was very popular and brought home many trophies. It was trending online for an entire week. Sai Yu's fame rose to another level and no one could shake it. Although it was late to congratulate him, Fu Yun still felt that he should congratulate him personally. Thank you. Uncle Yu, you're so amazing. Wen's eyes were sparkling. He looked up at Sai Yu and said with ambition, one day, I will surpass you. That's right. His goal in this life was not to reach Sai Yu's height, but to surpass him. Oh, this little guy was small, but he was ambitious. Sai Yu patted his little head and encouraged him. Good luck. Sai Yu did not stay for long. When he saw the tiredness on Fu Yun's face that could not be concealed, he stood up and said, I should go back too. Have a good rest. Fu Yun nodded and sent Sai Yu to the door. After watching him leave, she closed the door and turned to go back into the house. When Fu Yun returned to the house, Wen was sitting on the sofa. Perhaps because the environment was quiet, she could not help but doze off, her little head nodding off. Fu Yun carried her up and walked upstairs. Mom. Wen was in a daze. She hugged her shoulders with both hands and fell asleep in a short while. After being excited the whole day, she was indeed tired. Fu Yun originally wanted to carry her to his new room, but thinking that this was his first day living in a new house, she was afraid that he would not be used to it. If he woke up in the middle of the night and did not have a familiar person by his side, he would be frightened. Thus, she carried him to her room. Fu Yun was also very tired. She hurriedly washed up, lay on the bed, and fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. On the first night of officially settling down in the capital, everyone slept very soundly. It was rare that everyone even woke up late. When Fu Yun woke up, it was already past 9 o'clock. She still felt very tired and did not want to get up. However, after struggling for a while, she still got out of bed. Wen's cheeks were red from sleeping, and her small snoring was long. It was obvious that she was still sleeping soundly. Fu Yun did not wake her up. After washing up and changing her clothes, she yawned and walked downstairs. Qian Shengnan was already awake. When she saw Fu Yun coming downstairs, she greeted her. There's breakfast in the kitchen. As she did not know when they would wake up, Qian Shengnan put the breakfast on plates and bowls to keep it warm. Fu Yun opened the lid. After the heat dissipated, she saw that there were steamed buns, fried dough sticks, porridge, and soy milk. Thank you for your hard work. Fu Yun thought that Qian Shengnan had gone out to buy breakfast early in the morning, but she did not expect her to say, Mr. Sai Yu sent it over. Fu Yun, who had just poured a bowl of soy milk and drank 2 mouthfuls, almost choked. Qian Shengnan looked over in confusion. What's wrong? Can't I accept it? In Qian Shengnan's impression, Mr. Sai Yu and Fu Yun were very close. Since they were so close, it should be fine to accept breakfast, right? Fu Yun thought for a moment and said, "We'll make our own breakfast in the future." Fu Yun said it more tactfully. She did not know if Chen Shengnan understood what she meant, so she nodded. After a while, Uncle Guo also woke up. He walked into the kitchen with his hands behind his back. "What's there to eat?" He glanced into the pot. "I want to eat porridge and steamed buns." Then, he walked out with his hands behind his back. Fu Yun thought for a moment. It was not good to return now, so she might as well accept Sai Yu's kindness. Then, she left some of Wen Wen's breakfast in the pot and took the rest out with Chen Shengnan. "Shengnan, have you eaten?" Chen Shengnan shook her head. No. Her employer had not eaten yet. How could she eat first? No wonder there was so much left. "If we don't eat in time, you can eat first," Fu Yun said. Chen Shengnan agreed. The three of them sat down and ate breakfast together. Fu Yun went up to look at Wen Wen and shouted a few times. The little pig groaned and did not want to wake up, so she simply let him be and asked Chen Shengnan to keep an eye on the movements upstairs. She went to the greenhouse in the courtyard. There was a greenhouse in the courtyard that had been left behind by the previous owner. She had rearranged it and the 11 orchids that she had raised were all here. Originally, Fu Yun wanted to let Uncle Guo take care of this greenhouse and put his precious orchids. However, he felt that this place was not big enough and could not let him take care of so many orchids, so he was unwilling. Fu Yun could only put her own orchids and raise some other potted plants. She thought that this would work too. In the future, after Wen sent her to school every day, she would come back to livestream. She would wait outside for the rush hour before driving to the flower nursery. The flower nursery was not in a hurry to open for business in the morning. It usually opened after 10 o'clock. When she came back at night, it would be convenient for her to livestream for a while. Although the flower nursery was not too far away, it was not as convenient as the courtyard. Fu Yun was not free today. In addition, she had taken 5 days off, so she did not livestream. After tidying up the greenhouse a little, she quickly came out. Uncle Guo walked around the courtyard a few times. Soon, he could not stay any longer and wanted to go to the flower nursery. He would not be used to not looking at his precious orchids for a day. Wen was not awake yet, so she could not leave yet. In the end, she asked Chen Shengnan to drive Uncle Guo over while she stayed at home. Fu Yun's room had not been completely tidied up, so she simply tidied up the things in the room. The master bedroom was designed to be very spacious. In addition to the bedroom, there was also a bathroom, a lounge, and a cloakroom. Fu Yun did not make too many changes. She only changed the lounge into her own office. The study outside would mainly be used by Wen in the future. She had prepared for a rainy day. Wen woke up from hunger. He sat up sleepily and rubbed his eyes with his chubby hands. "Mom." Then, he opened his eyes and looked around. Fu Yun heard the commotion and walked out. When she saw that Wen was awake, she teased, "Little sleeping pig is finally awake." She walked over to pick up Wen's clothes and helped him put them on. Wen cooperated while protesting, "I'm not a pig." Actually, he knew how to put on clothes a long time ago, but winter clothes were too difficult to wear. They were thick and many. He would lose his balance and fall backward when wearing pants, so he could only ask his mother to help him. However, he could wear summer clothes himself. After putting on his clothes, Wen was already very awake. He jumped out of bed and ran to wash up. Then, he ran out of bed and touched his round belly through his clothes as he said, "Mom, I'm so hungry." Fu Yun took out the breakfast that she had left for him and placed it in front of him. She said, "Who asked you to stay in bed and refuse to get up? You must be hungry, right?" Wen giggled and shook his short legs. Wen smelled the fragrant breakfast and felt that he could eat it all. "Mom, where's Grandpa Guo and the rest?" Wen was almost done eating. Only then did he notice that the house was very quiet and that he did not see anyone else. They went to the flower garden. When heard this, his eyes lit up. He jumped off the high chair and ran to Fu Yun. "I want to go too. There's no car." Fu Yun only had one car under her name. Usually, Chen Shengnan was in charge of driving. She rarely drove by herself. Wen's eyes darted around. We can take our own car. Wen was eager to try. Fu Yun hesitated and did not immediately agree. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Wen immediately ran out happily. It's Uncle Yu. Fu Yun walked past unhurriedly. She remembered that this was a high-tech villa. She looked at the screen on the wall by the door. The visitor was indeed Sai Yu. Fu Yun walked out. Wen leaned against the door and tried to tiptoe to open it. His short hands could touch the door lock, but he was too short to open the door. Fu Yun went over to open the door. Wen immediately pounced on him. Uncle Yu. Sai Yu carried Wen and then looked at Fu Yun. The corners of his lips curled into a perfect smile. His eyes were deep and filled with a smile. Morning. Fu Yun was in a daze. Morning. Sai Yu carried Wen into the house. Fu Yun closed the door and followed behind. She felt that Mr. Yu was a little different from before. She couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different, but she felt that he seemed to be more charming. It was just quite seductive. Fu Yun was in a daze for a moment. When she came back to her senses, she looked up. The adult and the child were looking at her with the same expression. What's wrong? Wen blinked. Mom, Uncle Yu said that he's free to take us to the flower garden today. Shall we go together? Oh. Fu Yun nodded. Huh. She looked up. It's better not to. Mom agreed. Uncle Yu, let's go quickly. Wen cheered. Okay. Fu Yun. She felt that something was wrong. Chapter 63. Fu Yun got into the car and saw Wen sitting in the child's seat, happily talking to Sai Yu. The child's seat was installed in an expensive car, and it looked quite out of place. Mr. Yu, you have a child at home? Fu Yun asked in surprise. She had never asked about Mr. Yu's private matters, and her understanding of him was based on the public's impression. Could it be that Mr. Yu had already gotten married in secret? Not at the moment. Before Fu Yun could let her imagination run wild, Sai Yu replied with a smile in his voice. It's better to be prepared. See, I used it now. Fu Yun rubbed her nose. No matter how stupid she was, she knew that the child seat was only installed when there was a child at home. Who would install it for no reason? Well, Mr. Yu, are you really free? Of course, why? Actually, if you have something to do, you don't have to worry about us. In Fu Yun's impression, big celebrities were all so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. They wished that they could break 1 minute into 10 minutes. She could understand when they were in the village previously. After all, he was filming a show at that time, and it was normal for him to have nothing to do after the show was paused. But now, they were in the capital. Did he really not have anything to do? Sai Yu said, I'm free. I don't have anything to do recently. Sai Yu had been busy for a long time because of this period of leisure. Fu Yun only felt that people with power were willful. She was not afraid that her popularity would drop if she did not go out to do business. Wen heard the conversation between the adults and thought that his mother had misunderstood him as an unreasonable child. He said loudly, I asked Uncle Yu. Uncle Yu is free. If he was not free, he would not have pestered Uncle Yu to send them. He was not an insensible child. Fu Yun saw that Wen's little face was unhappy, so she skipped the topic. Because it was not rush hour, the car was unimpeded all the way. Half an hour later, they arrived at the flower garden. The flower garden had not officially opened for business and was not open to the public. In addition, the location was relatively remote, so there were not many pedestrians. The car drove directly into the private parking lot in the flowerbed, and the three of them got out of the car one after another. Wen's petite body bounced up and down. Then, she held Sai Yu's hand and introduced Sai Yu seriously. Uncle Yu, this is my family's flower garden. Wen said proudly. It was not easy to own such a large garden in the capital. Mom and Grandpa Guo were the best. Sai Yu looked at it seriously. That's amazing. Because of the cold weather, there weren't many potted plants outside. There were only some plants that could withstand the cold. It looked quite spacious, but it didn't look messy. It was very tidy and clean. The flower shed was like another world. The temperature was constant and the greenery was abundant, as if it was spring when flowers were in full bloom. If Fu Yun was helping to take care of the flowers in the flower shed, she did not pay attention to Wen Wen and Sai Yu. The flower shed was very large. She and Uncle Guo would not be able to take care of it. When the time came, there would be other businesses. Fu Yun thought that she would need to recruit at least 3 people. One person would be mainly in charge of external business, and 2 people would be in charge of taking care of the flower garden. The employees needed to be in position before the official opening. Fu Yun asked Tian Tian to post a recruitment notice online and also posted a recruitment notice at the door. During the interview, Uncle Guo would be in charge of judging. After all, she was a well-known figure, so it was not convenient for her to appear for the time being. Uncle Guo had a good eye for people, but he was also very picky. Not long after the recruitment notice was posted, a resume was sent over. Tian Tian sent the resume to Fu Yun. If Fu Yun felt that it was suitable, she would ask Tian Tian to send a notice to the applicant and ask them to come for an interview tomorrow. Fu Yun's opening time was still a month later. When the weather was warm and the flowers bloomed in spring, it would be a good day. Therefore, it was fine to recruit employees who could work together before the opening. At night, Uncle Guo did not want to leave. He wanted to stay in the flower garden. How could Fu Yun let him stay here alone? The place was big, and there was no one else around. If something unexpected happened, no one would be able to find out in time. Therefore, she firmly disagreed. Uncle Guo could not persuade Fu Yun Ruo to stay, so he angrily took the car back. Fu Yun Ruo had many reasons. She was not familiar with the villa yet, and it was empty here. Moreover, the blankets and other necessities in the room were not ready. Now, he had to follow them back and forth. After the opening, there would be more people. Fu Yun Ruo did not care about him anymore. He could stay for a few days a month. She could bring Wen Wen over on the weekends. Fu Yun Ruo looked outside and said to Chen Shengnan, "Can you drop us off at the entrance of the supermarket?" Fu Yun Ruo had been here a few times, so she was quite familiar with the surroundings. There was a large supermarket in the residential area, so it was very convenient to buy things there. This supermarket was specially designed to serve the residents in the residential area. Although it was called a large supermarket, it was not as big as the large supermarkets outside. It was divided into upper and lower floors, but it was very well equipped. If they did not have what they wanted to buy, they could register at the front desk and ask the supermarket to help them buy it and deliver it to their doorstep. They did not have to be secretive when shopping in the supermarket here. They came to buy things openly. Therefore, Fu Yun Ruo could see the famous people who often appeared on the screen here. There was not much food at home, so they needed to buy some fruits and vegetables and some daily necessities. Although they had brought a lot of things, they still lacked a lot of things after moving to a new house. Uncle Guo said, "Buy some blankets." Got it. Fu Yun Ruo and Uncle Guo got out of the car at the entrance of the supermarket, while Chen Shengnan drove the car back first. If they bought a lot of things, the supermarket employees would help deliver them to their doorstep. This 5-story building was a leisure, entertainment, and shopping center for the residents in the residential area. The first floor was the supermarket, the second floor was the gym, the third floor was the leisure and entertainment center, the fourth floor was the children's playground, and the fifth floor was the children's hobby and tuition classes. Although there were professional tutors at home, it was also good to learn some hobby classes with friends of the same age. Fu Yun Ruo had children at home, so she had specially learned about these. When the time came, she would see what hobbies Wen Wen wanted to learn. They entered the supermarket and had just pushed a shopping cart when her phone rang. Fu Yun Ruo looked down and saw that the caller ID was Sai Yu. After she picked up the call, Wen Wen's tender voice was heard. "Mom, where are you?" On the way back, Fu Yun Ruo heartlessly abandoned Wen Wen and took her own car back. Now that they had gotten out of the car early, they were separated from Wen Wen. "We came to the supermarket to buy things. You and Uncle you go home first." Fu Yun Ruo thought for a moment and said, Mr. Yu, please take care of Wen for a while. Shengnan will be here soon. Fu Yunruo did not think of this when she was at the flower garden. When she remembered, Sai Yu was driving, so she did not inform her. Fu Yunruo comforted her for a while and hung up the phone. The things in the mall were more expensive. Many imported snacks and furniture could be seen here. However, there were not many of the same products on the shelves. It was obvious that they had taken the route of selling fewer things. For those large pieces of furniture, there were only a few samples displayed here. Only daily necessities and fruits and vegetables were consumed quickly. However, this was a special service for the community, so the money was well spent. Fu Yunruo first went to the living area to buy some odds and ends. Hello, are you Yun? A low and deep voice sounded not far away. Fu Yunruo looked up. A man in a suit and leather shoes was looking at her. His mature and handsome face was full of surprise. He inadvertently noticed that a slim back figure was somewhat familiar. When he saw the side profile, he felt that it was even more familiar. He asked tentatively. When he saw the face clearly, he was 100% sure. Hello, I'm your fan, Linji. Linji added, my online username is nameless. That person is me. Fu Yunruo stood up. Hello, I remember you. Only her fans often called her Yun. Moreover, she was also familiar with the ID nameless. Although it was not as good as the number one on the list, it was also on the reward list. Furthermore, it had been following her for a long time. So you moved here. What a coincidence. Fu Yunruo's fans had long known that Fu Yunruo was moving to the capital during this period of time, but they did not know where she was moving to. He had even thought that it would be great if he could move here. He did not expect that it would really come true. Yes, what a coincidence. Fu Yunruo felt that the world was really small. She could meet fans just by moving. If other fans found out, they would be so jealous of me. They would definitely want to crawl out of their phones and hit me, Linji said with a smile. Fu Yunruo was amused. How can it be so exaggerated, Mom? Fu Yunruo looked up and saw Sai Yu holding Wen's hand appear in front of her. Wen let go of Sai Yu's hand and hurriedly ran over. Then, she hugged Fu Yunruo's thigh, her face full of unhappiness. He unconsciously pouted. Mom is gone. He got out of the car and waited at the door for a long time, but she did not appear. Am I not here? It's Mom's fault. I will definitely bring the baby along next time. Fu Yunruo coaxed Wen for a while before she managed to coax her. When Linji saw Wen, he was even happier. He could not help but say gently, hello, Zai. Even Linji, who had never liked children, now understood what it meant to be so adorable that one's heart trembled. Linji only felt that Zai was adorable from head to toe. Even her hair was adorable. Wen turned her head and looked over. She blinked. Hello, uncle. Hello, Zai. Linji suppressed the excitement in his heart and said calmly, I am also your fan. Wen tilted her head. This was the first time she had met a real fan outside of the people she knew. Uncle, do you want an autograph? Wen clenched her little fists, her eyes sparkling. Yes. Linji took out the fountain pen hanging in front of his chest. He did not have a pen and paper with him, so he simply took out a clean and soft handkerchief. Wen took the fountain pen. Her little belly unconsciously puffed out, and she was full of confidence. She originally wanted to write beautifully, but her skills did not allow her to do so. Her little chubby hand held the pen and wrote crookedly, taking up more than half of the handkerchief. When saw the finished product she had written, her face turned red. Why was it so ugly? However, Linji was full of praise. Zai is so amazing. You can actually write your own name, that's great. After being praised for a while, Wen instantly regained her confidence. Then, she raised her head and puffed out her chest, beaming with joy. Linji stood up and said to Fu Yunruo, Can I ask you for an autograph? It had to be said that the contrast between a handsome face and a shy smile was very cute. Fu Yunruo smiled and said, Sure. Then, she took the pen and paper and signed her name in the empty space on the handkerchief. Sai Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at him carefully. Then, he walked over and picked up Wen with one hand. He said to Fu Yunruo familiarly, "Are you done buying?" Fu Yunruo looked at the things in the shopping cart. "Not yet." When Lin Ji saw Sai Yu, his smile immediately disappeared. He stared at Sai Yu with a serious face. Sai Yu glanced over casually. Their eyes met, and there seemed to be a crackling sound in the air. "Are you Mr. Sai Yu?" Lin Ji stretched out his hand politely with a fake smile. "Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. May I know who you are?" Sai Yu stretched out his hand. "My surname is Lin, and my name is Ji." "Hello, Mr. Lin. Does Mr. Sai Yu live here too? I've never seen you before. It's normal that you haven't seen me before. After all, I was away for a few months when I was filming. Even if I was at home, I didn't go out often." "Is that so? That's too unlucky." Indeed, Fu Yunruo stared at the things in the shopping cart and silently calculated. After remembering what she was missing, she looked up and saw the two men looking at each other and exchanging pleasantries. However, she felt that something was wrong. She was puzzled. Could it be that Mr. Yu and her fans had some grudges? Fu Yunruo looked at this and that. No, it didn't seem like they had any grudges. Fu Yunruo stared at the two of them who had been holding hands. "Are you two like old friends at first sight?" Fu Yunruo thought that it was a good thing to have another friend. Chapter 64. The two men who were laughing like knives and swords suddenly restrained their aura. Sai Yu retracted his hand and turned to look at Fu Yunruo. He smiled slightly and said, "Yes, we hit it off at first sight." Lin Ji retracted his slightly numb hand. His smile was perfect as he nodded in agreement. "We regret that we didn't meet sooner." Fu Yunruo didn't understand the friendship between men, but she was busy now, so she said tentatively, "Then you guys can chat? I'll go buy something first." Lin Ji heard this and said, "I'm familiar with the supermarket. Yun, I can lead the way and give you advice on what you want to buy." Lin Ji's heart beat slightly faster. He looked at Fu Yunruo and felt unconsciously nervous. He regarded Fu Yunruo as a goddess, but in front of a goddess, he was no longer calm. Instead, he was like an inexperienced young boy. Before Fu Yunruo could answer, Sai Yu smiled and said, "How can I waste your time? I'm also familiar with this supermarket. It's fine with me." Fu Yunruo looked at Sai Yu and then looked at Lin Ji. Whether Sai Yu said anything or not, Fu Yunruo had to refuse. Therefore, she tactfully refused, "Thank you, but we have a lot of things to buy. We can just walk around and take a look." Lin Ji's eyes were disappointed, but he was worried that if he pestered Fu Yunruo too much, he would leave a bad impression on her, so he said, "I was rude." Lin Ji looked at Sai Yu. He really wanted to ask her about her relationship with Sai Yu. He knew that they knew each other, but he didn't know that they were so familiar with each other. He felt the hostility of the other party towards him. They looked like a family of three, but he could also sense that Yun's attitude towards Sai Yu was not ambiguous. He also wanted to exchange contact information with Yun, but Lin Ji was afraid that she would feel that he had offended her. He hesitated for a moment and finally politely said goodbye. He thought reluctantly that since they lived in the same villa area, they would meet often, right? There was no hurry. After they left, Sai Yu said to Fu Yun seriously, "Are they your fans?" Idols and fans can't get too close because fans like their idols. Sometimes, it's not a good thing to get too close. Wen nodded in agreement. Fans were the most adorable group of people in the world, but when the devil was up, it would only make people feel afraid. Who could guarantee that he would only meet little cuties? You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. If he was an extreme fan, it would be a tragedy. Fu Yunruo? Didn't they feel like old friends at first sight just now? However, as a famous figure with a huge fan base, telling her this was considered a senior's advice to a junior. Fu Yun nodded, indicating that she would take it to heart. Actually, she didn't think that Lin Ji was that kind of extreme fan, even though they had only exchanged a few words. Fu Yunruo quickly put this episode to the back of her mind and continued to buy necessities. She even went to the fruit and vegetable area to buy fruits and vegetables. Uncle Guo bought a lot of things. He bought quilts, bed covers, and daily necessities. He was prepared to take them to the flower garden. Obviously, he wanted to live there early. They bought too many things. In the end, the supermarket employees helped to send them home while they slowly walked back. Fu Yunruo saw that Sai Yu was carrying Wen as they walked. She felt that Sai Yu was embarrassed to put her down, so she said, "Mr. Yu, you can put Wen down and walk by yourself." Wen originally had a free ride, my. When she heard Fu Yunruo say this, she said, "Uncle Yu, put me down." Sai Yu put Wen down. Wen jogged to Fu Yunruo's side and held her hand. Her little chubby face was smiling, as if she was saying, "Look at how sensible I am." When they reached the entrance, Fu Yunruo politely invited, "Mr. Yu, would you like to have dinner at my place?" Today, Sai Yu helped to drive them back to the flower garden. He would feel bad if he didn't repay him. Sai Yu said, "Then I'll accept your invitation." On the second night in the imperial capital, the lively atmosphere passed. Their days in the imperial capital were on the right track. Fu Yunruo and Uncle Guo's students finally found a suitable opportunity. Everyone brought their families and had a lively gathering. Although Uncle Guo said that he disliked it, he was actually very happy. He couldn't help but drink a few more glasses. If not for everyone watching, Uncle Guo would probably be drunk. However, even so, Uncle Guo was still a little tipsy by the time they left. When they returned to the neighborhood, they got off the car at the entrance of the neighborhood and walked back slowly. Fu Yunruo didn't drink much. There was a smell of alcohol on her body, but she wasn't drunk. Uncle Guo was tipsy and nagged along the way. If Fu Yun didn't let him stay at the flower garden, he would have an opinion. Fu Yunruo saw that Uncle Guo was really unhappy, so she could only compromise and said, "When we recruit someone, there will be other people in the flower garden. I'll let you go over, okay?" Fu Yunruo thought about it and felt that she was making things difficult for Uncle Guo. He was a person who loved orchids. It was normal for him to not be able to see his own orchids when he woke up every day. Furthermore, Uncle Guo was quite old. It was also tiring for him to travel back and forth every day. She only thought that the environment at the flower garden was definitely not as comfortable as living in the villa. Furthermore, it wasn't good for Uncle Guo to be alone there without anyone to take care of him. Uncle Guo saw that Fu Yunruo was a little depressed and felt uncomfortable. Fu Yunruo instinctively looked at Uncle Guo. Uncle Guo said with a straight face, "If you have something to say, say it. Why are you hemming and hawing?" The security guard rubbed his hands, but because he was tall and upright and had a stern look on his face, his behavior did not look wretched at all. He looked embarrassed. "I just heard that you seem to be hiring. I have 2 candidates here who are quite suitable. Can they apply to you? That brother of mine is a very loyal and honest person. It's just that he's a little disabled, but it doesn't affect his skills at all. I can't even beat him. Sister-in-law, who is also his wife, is also looking for a job." The security guard tried his best to say something nice, but perhaps because he did not say it often, his voice sounded dry. He was worried that he could not express himself clearly and was sweating profusely. "It's okay if they don't meet the requirements in the end. But, can you give them a chance?" Fu Yunruo could not bear to see it. The security guard obviously wanted to fight for a chance for his brother and risked losing his job for it. She finally told the security guard the address of the flower garden and asked his brother and his wife to try her place. If they could not remember the address, they could call the villa to ask for help. The security guard repeated it a few times and thanked her gratefully before leaving in a hurry. Uncle Guo glared at her unhappily. "Why are you being so kind?" Fu Yunruo comforted him. "It's just an interview opportunity. If they really don't meet our standards, I don't want them. Of course, if they meet the requirements, everyone would be happy and she would not need to hire anymore." Uncle Guo snorted coldly and did not say anything else. Fu Yunruo did not take this episode to heart. It was only when Sis Wang called and said that a couple came to apply for the job that she remembered this matter. Fu Yunruo looked at the time. It was only 9:30 p.m. They had not left the house yet. She forgot to tell the security guard about the interview time yesterday, so she asked Sis Wang to entertain them first. She would go over immediately. Fu Yunruo, Wen, and the rest took a car to the flower garden. There was a couple sitting in the living room. Half of their hair was white. The woman was a little reserved and uneasy, but the man's back was straight. Fu Yunruo, Uncle Guo, and Wen walked in. "Sorry to have kept you waiting." Fu Yunruo just said a few words to Sis Wang. She did not know when they arrived. When Sis Wang came to the flower garden, they were already waiting at the door. She did not know how long they had been waiting. The two of them stood up. "We came early." Only then did Fu Yunruo know what the security guard meant when he said that he was a little disabled. There was a scar on the left side of the man's face. This scar was very deep and had destroyed his left eye. At first glance, it looked a little scary, but his intact right eye had a determined look. Fu Yunruo was surprised for a moment, but she quickly returned to normal. She looked at Wen, only to see Wen looking at him curiously. She did not look scared. The woman looked at Fu Yunruo nervously. She knew that her man's injury was a hindrance to the city's appearance. Many companies did not hire him. He could not even be a cleaner. She was afraid that Fu Yunruo would ask them to leave. Fu Yunruo thought in her heart. Anyway, the security guards in the flower garden walked around the inner area and only came out at night. If there was no problem with their character and skills, there would be no problem. Chapter 65. The couple who came to apply for the job were 46 years old this year. They were childhood sweethearts. The man's name was Wei Wuguo, and the woman's name was Zhong Dongmei. Wei Wuguo was once a military academy student. He was a person with a strong sense of justice. One time, he went out to do justice during the holidays and injured his face and eye. Naturally, he couldn't become a soldier again and could only retire. He didn't cause trouble for the army. He took the allowance and retired directly to go home and find another way to make a living. However, because he was blind in one eye and had a scar on his face, many companies didn't hire him. In addition, he was only good at fighting. When the army gave him a place to study, he spent a lot of effort to pass the cultural exam. Other than his fighting skills, he wasn't so outstanding in other aspects that people ignored his appearance. Even if he became a security guard, people would care about his reputation and eventually return to his hometown to farm. Later, he met Zhong Dongmei, who was willing to live with him in his hometown. The two of them ended up together and had a daughter. Their lives were ordinary, but their daughter was a good student and got into Imperial University. They worked hard in their hometown and couldn't save much money all year round. The couple wanted to give their daughter a better life and save more money. In the end, they decided to try their luck and see if they could find a job. On the other hand, they wanted to be closer to their daughter. In order to find a job, he contacted his comrades who he hadn't seen for many years. After they retired from the army, some worked in the unit, while others looked for jobs on their own. Although some of the security guards in the community seemed very ordinary, in reality, this job was very leisurely and well paid. The benefits were very good. Wei Wuguo didn't expect his old comrades to introduce them to jobs, so the couple was very diligent in looking for jobs. He didn't expect that in just 5 days, a comrade would call him and say that an owner wanted to hire a couple. They both met the requirements and asked them to try. After Fu Yun learned about the man's life, she also learned about the woman's life. It was a very ordinary life. Fu Yun was quite tempted. They met the basic requirements, and there wasn't much of a problem with their people. However, she wanted to know how good their fighting skills were. If it was just ordinary, what if they were unlucky one day and were robbed here? Wouldn't they not be able to intimidate others and might even be injured? Coincidentally, Qian Shengnan was also there. Fu Yun wanted them to spar. In the end, the two of them tied, but according to Qian Shengnan, she lost. There was no problem with her skills and character. The flaw in her looks could be ignored. Moreover, this was a hero's medal, which would only make her admire it. In fact, she had gotten used to it after looking at it for a long time and did not find it scary. Uncle Guo did not have any objections. If Fu Yun let them join the company directly, they would be on probation for 3 months. If they got along well and there were no problems, they would be promoted to full members in advance. If Fu Yun offered them a generous salary, the couple would not have any objections and they could start work on the same day. As a result, the people in the flowerbed were all present, and the atmosphere was even more lively. Uncle Guo could not wait to move to the flowerbed the next day. Now that there were other people in the flowerbed, Fu Yun had no reason to refuse. Therefore, she decided to stay with her son in the flowerbed for the time being. The reason for moving over was to observe whether these 2 employees were qualified or not. If there were any problems, they would have to be replaced as soon as possible. Wen did not suspect anything. He was still very happy to live in the flowerbed. He was very interested in Uncle Wei's skills. Every morning, when Uncle Wei practiced outside, he would watch from the side and move his chubby hands and feet a few times. He often saw Sister Shengnan practicing, but he felt that there was a difference between men and women. Therefore, even if he was curious, he only took a few more glances and did not pester to learn. Now that there was an even better one, Wen was even more interested. If he could learn a thing or two, he would benefit for life. There was another reason why Fu Yun wanted to live in the flowerbed. She always felt that she was too close to Sai Yu, and it made her feel uncomfortable. Although they had lived under the same roof for a period of time in the countryside, Sai Yu had a sense of propriety at that time. They got along as comfortably as friends and did not feel ambiguous. However, now that they were living next door, they saw each other every day. Sai Yu would come over every morning to clock in and play with Wen. Occasionally, he would come over to help her when he saw her working. Moreover, she felt that Sai Yu seemed to be flirting with her. Sometimes, his attitude was a little ambiguous. Fu Yun thought of what Tian had said to her and could not help but think. Could it be that Sai Yu wanted to woo her? But she was unmarried and had a child. Thinking of Sai Yu's attitude towards Wen, perhaps even a biological father might not be to this extent. Did he really want to be Wen's stepfather? For a moment, Fu Yun was worried that she was overthinking, but for a moment, she felt that she was not wrong. In her dilemma, she simply avoided him. However, after staying for less than 2 days, Fu Yun still had to run back to the villa during the day because her flowers were in the greenhouse at home. Fu Yun took the opportunity to run back when Wen was full and taking an afternoon nap to ask Brother Wei and his wife to help look after them. She trusted this couple very much. She had seen their daughter, Wei Xiaoye, who had been admitted to Imperial Capital University. Fu Yun found out that the 3 of them were living in a rented house together and that Wei Xiaoye had found a temporary job, so she also let her stay in the flower garden temporarily so that the couple could be at ease. She temporarily shared a room with Wen, while Wei Xiaoye shared a room with Chen Shengnan. This time, Fu Yun deeply felt that there were not enough rooms. When she suggested asking someone to build 2 more rooms, Wei Wuguo directly said that she could leave it to him. He often helped people build houses in the countryside, so it was easier to build a 2-story house here. He just had to build it on the right side of the house. Coincidentally, they had nothing to do now, so the couple started working energetically. They were different every day. That was not all. Wei Wuguo's comrades, who were also the security guards of the neighborhood, also came. They were very grateful to Fu Yun for agreeing to let Wei Wuguo work here. They heard from somewhere that they were going to build a house, so they specially changed their shift and came over to help. This was even more efficient. The house was built in an instant. There was an extra room upstairs and downstairs. They could move in after a period of time. Back at the scene, Fu Yun thought that Sai Yu would not be at home in the afternoon and would be busy with other things. She quickly ran back to water and fertilized the flowers. After letting her imagination run wild for a while, she quickly focused all her attention on the orchids and worked without any distractions. Old Seven's leaves needed to be trimmed. Fu Yun lowered her head and took care of Old Seven. Just as she put the tools away, she turned around and suddenly saw a person standing at the door. She was shocked and instinctively took a step back. Be careful. Fu Yun's eyes narrowed. Sai Yu was already very close to her. He held her waist with one hand and his other hand reached over her to support the potted plant that she had accidentally knocked over in her panic. The two of them were very close. Fu Yun's nose was almost pressed against the other party's chest. She seemed to be surrounded by the other party's breath. Fu Yun's heart was beating very fast. She was scared. Her hands were on the shelf behind her. Her waist was pressed against the obstacle, and her body leaned back slightly. Did I scare you? Sai Yu moved a little further away and looked down at her. Fu Yun looked up. Why are you here? Didn't he scare her? Anyone who saw someone standing behind them without being mentally prepared would be scared, okay? Fu Yun Ruo felt as though her soul was about to leave her body. Sorry. Sai Yu felt a little wronged. Was he unbearably ugly? How could he scare her? His posture was clearly the most charming. I heard some movement here, so I came over to take a look. Fu Yun was speechless. She did not tell anyone about her thoughts. Qian Shengnan also did not know about her inner struggle. She only knew that Sai Yu was a friend, so she naturally let him in. I came back to take a look at the flowers. Okay. Sai Yu did not ask further. Fu Yun did not explain further. The two of them looked at each other speechlessly. Fu Yun then realized that their posture was not right. They were too close, and Sai Yu's hand was hugging her waist. Fu Yun instinctively reached out to push him away. She pushed with all her might, but he did not budge. Sai Yu stood in front of her like a mountain. Sai Yu looked down at the two palms that were pressed against his chest and raised his eyebrows slightly. Fu Yun followed his gaze. Her palms seemed to be able to feel the other party's body temperature through his clothes. It was so hot that her scalp was numb. A smile appeared in Sai Yu's eyes. Is it nice to touch? She immediately retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. I'm not. Fu Yun's face was burning red. Her original intention was to push him away, but it seemed like she was taking advantage of him. Mr. Yu. She tried to stay calm. I'm not used to being so close to others. Sai Yu retracted his hand and took 2 steps back. Fu Yun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Ruo. Sai Yu had just called out her name when Fu Yun felt her scalp tingle. She quickly interrupted him. Mr. Yu, I'm done here. It's time to go back to the garden. If I don't go back, Wen will make a scene. I'm sorry. Fu Yun did not give Sai Yu a chance to speak. Sai Yu, okay. Be careful on the road. Fu Yun, ? She nodded blankly. That's it. Nothing else to say. What did he mean? Every time she thought that he was interested in her, he would not pester her or flirt with her in the next moment. It made her heart flutter, and she could not help but wonder what he meant. Mr. Yu, yes. Fu Yun swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She felt that she was imagining things. If she really misunderstood, wouldn't it be very awkward in the future? If the other party's attitude was clearer, she could have rejected him. But now, she really could not say it. No, we're leaving. Okay. Sai Yu turned around and left. We'll play together when you come back. Fu Yun went back with a conflicted heart. But soon, she did not have the time to think about his thoughts. The garden would officially open in 10 days. But before that, there was a very important matter. Wen should go to kindergarten. Wen felt like a bolt from the blue. He was having fun, but he had to go to school. He did not want to go to kindergarten with a group of brats. Mom, you're not young anymore. You're already a 4-year-old baby. The other children are also going to kindergarten at your age. Mom, everything is good at home. I don't need you to accompany me. Grandpa Guo also doesn't need you to accompany him. There are uncles, aunties, and aunties in the garden. We don't need your help. What other reasons do you have? Wen. All the excuses he wanted to find were blocked. Wen held back for a long time before he finally said righteously, but I know a lot of words and can calculate. I don't need to go to kindergarten to learn. Oh, then I'll test you. Mom, go ahead and test me. Wen was very confident. He was familiar with the scripts and knew countless words. He even remembered the multiplication table and pinyin. He was not afraid of being tested at all. Fu Yun found a pen and paper and wrote a word. How do you pronounce this word? What does it mean? Was this a word? Wasn't it partial division, leader? What was the meaning of this? Fu Yun said earnestly, baby, this is the simplest word. It's just one stroke. You have to learn it in kindergarten. When? He remembered so many scripts, but he did not know how to pronounce this word. The sky is vast and the fields are boundless. Cattle and sheep are seen when the wind blows the grass. Where does it come from? There was no such thing in the ancient nursery rhymes. But he seemed to have some impression of it. What's the 13th decimal point of pi? When quickly counted with his fingers. 3,141,5926. What was the number after that? Wen's eyes turned into mosquito coils. These questions were too difficult. Why didn't they test what 1 plus 1 equaled? Chapter 66. Wen was deeply shocked. He squatted in the corner and didn't say anything. He felt that he was at the level of a 6th grader in primary school, but he couldn't even answer his mother's question. It was too embarrassing. Fu Yun laughed secretly. She thought to herself, I can't control this little brat. Are you going to school obediently? Good. Wen said dejectedly. Fu Yun picked Wen up. Our baby is the best. He can memorize poems, count, and write. Mommy has never seen a child smarter than him. Why is our baby so amazing? Fu Yun quickly fed Wen sweet dates and praised him countless times. Wen's depressed mood was cured, but his little face was reserved. It's just so. Wen was modest. There are still many things I don't know. So if baby goes to kindergarten and learns everything he doesn't know, he'll be even better. Okay. Wen finally smiled and agreed happily. Fu Yun struck while the iron was hot and quickly took the child to the kindergarten to sign up. After she bought a villa here, it would be convenient for her to sign up at the nearby kindergarten. After coming to the capital, she finally registered Wen's household register and could go to school normally without any impact. It was only a 10-minute drive and was very close. Soon, they arrived at the kindergarten. The kindergarten area was very big. The buildings were filled with childlike charm and fantasy, like a castle in a fairy tale. There were many parents and children who came to sign up. Because there were children, it was very lively. Fu Yun saw when looking at the playground where the children were playing, so she said, let Sister Shengnan take you to play with the children, okay? Fu Yun and Qian Shengnan only brought Wen to the registration this time. If Wen wanted to play, then only Qian Shengnan could watch over her. She had to go and see the school's situation. Wen immediately shook her head and grabbed Fu Yun's hand. I'm not going to play with them. It was too childish. He didn't come to kindergarten to play. He wanted to learn. He was just a little curious. It turned out that there were so many things to play in this kindergarten and school. It was too frivolous. Seeing this, Fu Yun led him to meet the teacher. The parents who came to sign up were all well-dressed and driving luxury cars. At a glance, it was obvious that they were at least middle-class and above successful people. She didn't expect herself and Wen to be so well-known here. Many parents brought their children here to get to know each other. It had been more than half a year since last year's show. After that, they kept a low profile and basically did not show their faces in front of the public. They thought that not many people could recognize them in real life. Wen did not expect so many people to come and greet her. She even received a lot of business cards. She also gained a bunch of brothers and sisters. If Fu Yun reported her name to Wen, she would become a student of the lower class. School would officially start in 3 days. Fu Yun brought Wen out early in the morning. When they returned, it was almost midnight. Sai Yu was already at home and was chatting with Uncle Guo. Although Uncle Guo did not follow them to school, he was still very concerned about Wen. Hence, it was rare that he was not at the flower garden. Sai Yu asked, have you finished registering? Fu Yun nodded. Yes. She told Uncle Guo and Sai Yu about the school's situation. Her tone was filled with satisfaction. Uncle Yu, you're here. Sai Yu patted Wen's head. Wen is going to kindergarten soon. What reward do you want? Wen shook his head. He did not want any reward. He had a lot now. Sayu thought for a moment and said, how about this? I'll bring you to the amusement park in the afternoon. Wen immediately nodded, her eyes sparkling. Okay. Uncle Guo massaged his waist and said with his hands behind his back, this old man won't join in the fun. Fu Yun hesitated. You're a public figure. If this face appeared in the crowd, wouldn't it cause chaos? How could they play? Have you forgotten? I said that I have a perfect disguise. Sayu winked at Fu Yun. Fu Yun said, why don't you bring Wen? I won't go. Wen ran to Fu Yun and asked in confusion, Mom, aren't you bringing me? Let Uncle Yu bring you. No, Mom will go too. Wen acted coquettishly in front of Fu Yun without any pressure. Fu Yun. She thought for a moment. All right, let's call Tian and the rest. This way, it would not feel like a family of 3 going out. Yes. Fu Yun looked up inadvertently and met a pair of deep and focused eyes. Their eyes met and Sayu's eyes lit up with a smile. Fu Yun scratched her face. Mr. Yu, you don't mind, right? I don't mind. It's more lively with more people. Fu Yun sent a message to Tian and asked if Brother Kai and the rest were free, as well as Wei Xiaoye. However, in the end, only Tian was free. It was too sudden. They had already arranged things to do in the afternoon and could not find the time. After the lunch break, Qian Shengnan put on makeup for Fu Yunruo. She looked like a completely different person. Then, she put on a hat and a pair of large black-rimmed glasses. The disguise was perfect. Then, Qian Shengnan put on some makeup for Wen. Fu Yun was watching from the side. When she heard the doorbell ring, she went to open the door. An unfamiliar person appeared in front of her. He was wearing an ordinary black jacket and a hat. At first glance, he looked completely unfamiliar. Hello. It was also an unfamiliar voice. Fu Yun wanted to ask who it was, but she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. She asked uncertainly, Mr. Yu? You recognize me? The voice changed back to its familiar tone. Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. This change was amazing. When he walked in the crowd, he was instantly drowned out. Furthermore, no matter how high he looked, he could only see one person. Sayu picked him up and placed him on his neck. Wen's vision instantly rose. It was as if he could see the mountains. He looked around happily. He was the tallest. The other children who sat on their father's neck were not as tall as him. As they walked, they finally saw a ride that was suitable for Wen. Hence, they brought Wen to play. After playing enough, they went to another ride. When they saw the merry-go-round, they went to ride it. Fu Yun took a lot of photos of Wen. At this moment, she felt regretful. Everyone was so good at disguising themselves that they could not recognize each other. Wen was soon high from playing and went to ride the bumper cars. Fu Yun and Wen were in one, while the others were in another. They wandered around the venue and bumped into each other. Fu Yun was also having a lot of fun and could not help but laugh. After playing once, they were not satisfied, so they played a second time. Wen's face was red. She said to Sayu, who was standing outside, Uncle Yu, come down and play too. Sayu waved his hand. Just as he was about to refuse, Fu Yun looked over with a smile. Mr. Yu, come and play too. It's very fun. Okay. Sayu walked down the stage and randomly chose a small car. His long legs were bent, but it still looked narrow. It did not match the style of the small car. Fu Yun could not help but laugh. Mom, quickly bump into Uncle Yu. Wen said excitedly. Fu Yun obeyed her command. Sayu's car was crooked. After a while, he mastered the skill and skillfully controlled the steering wheel. He nimbly avoided the mother and son's pursuit and ran around the venue. Wen was excited every time she saw that they were about to collide, but it was always just a little short. Wen pursed her lips. Uncle Yu, don't run like that. What was the point of playing chase if the bumper cars did not collide with each other? Sayu raised his eyebrows and changed direction. Then, he collided with Fu Yun's car. Wen Wen was instantly happy. After 2 rounds, everyone was satisfied and moved on to the next event. While walking on the road, Qian Qian's sharp eyes noticed that there were people selling candied fruits in the crowd not far away. Go and buy candied fruits. Wen Wen heard and quickly said, I'll go too. Qian Qian quickly held Wen Wen's hand and squeezed through the crowd to chase after them. The candied fruits were running away. Wen Wen. Fu Yun saw the 2 of them run into the crowd and quickly chased after them. The crowd in front of her surged, and she could not see them in the blink of an eye. Don't worry. Sai Yu pressed Fu Yun's shoulder. Chen Shengnan is already following them. Chapter 67. Fu Yun Ruo looked around, but Chen Shengnan had already disappeared. Shall we go look for them? Fu Yun Ruo tried her best to tiptoe and look forward, but there were too many people and she couldn't see anyone familiar. She lifted her feet and walked forward, but she didn't expect to be grabbed by the wrist. Fu Yun Ruo looked over in confusion. Sai Yu said, let's wait here. They'll come back after they buy something. If we look for them, we'll miss them. Fu Yun Ruo thought about it and felt that it made sense. The few of them had chased after the candied hawthorn seller. They probably hadn't gone far and would be back soon. Hence, the 2 of them walked to a more conspicuous spot with fewer people and stood there. Fu Yun Ruo realized that Sai Yu had been holding her wrist. She moved her hand, but when the other party let go, she quickly withdrew her hand. That circle of wrist seemed to be on fire, and a steady stream of heat spread from it. Fu Yun Ruo unconsciously clenched her hand, trying to disperse the heat. Sai Yu turned his head to look at her and said with certainty, You're avoiding me. No, I'm not. Fu Yun Ruo avoided his gaze. Then, she made herself look not guilty at all. We're friends. Why would I avoid you for no reason? Is that so? Sai Yu raised his eyebrows. Of course. Your flower bed will be opening in 10 days, right? Will I have the honor of attending your opening ceremony? Sure. Fu Yun Ruo nodded. But you have to disguise yourself. Fu Yun Ruo looked at his current outfit and felt that it was fine. There would definitely be passers-by on the opening day. Fu Yun Ruo didn't want to cause a sensation because of Sai Yu's appearance. Although this was an invisible advertisement, his face was too eye-catching. Sai Yu Ruo couldn't help but press her head. Are you looking down on me? Fu Yun Ruo quickly turned her head away. Don't touch me. My hat is going to be crooked. Sai Yu Ruo chuckled softly. Fu Yun Ruo looked at him suspiciously. She was 70% sure that Sai Yu was interested in her, right? Should she make things clear first? Mom. A clear and loud voice was heard. Fu Yun Ruo turned around to take a look and ran over gently. She raised her small face and said, Where did you go? When I turned around, you were gone. Fu Yun could not help but pinch his chubby little face. You still have the cheek to say that. Who was the one who abandoned his mother and ran away? Wen Wen blinked guiltily. I went to buy candied haws for Mom. The uncle selling candied haws followed the flow of people, and it was not easy for them to catch up. Where's the Tang Hulu? Fu Yun looked at his empty little chubby hand. Wen Wen turned around and saw that Tian Tian's sister had already walked out from the crowd. He hurriedly ran over and took 2 red candied haws, then ran in front of Fu Yun. Mommy, here. Fu Yun took it. Thank you, Wen Wen. Sai Yu asked, Where's mine? Wen Wen looked up and hesitated for a moment. Then, he gave the other candied haws to him. Uncle, here. Tian Tian bought one for each person and still had more in her hands. Then, she handed them to Wen Wen. This candied haws is quite authentic. It's sweet and sour. It's delicious. Fu Yun had not eaten this snack for many years, so she was also quite interested. The group of people had a candied haws in their hands and ate as they walked. Fu Yun saw that Wen Wen had already eaten 3, and was afraid that it would not be good for him to eat too much, so she told him not to eat anymore. Wen Wen looked at the remaining candied haws and was a little reluctant to part with them. However, he was an obedient child. Besides, he still had to save some for other delicious food, so he gave the remaining candied haws to Fu Yun. Fu Yun had already finished one skewer. No matter how delicious it was, she would not be able to eat so much in one go. Just as Fu Yun was in a difficult position, Sai Yu took the remaining candied haws from Fu Yun's hands and ate them without a change in expression. Wen pulled Fu Yun's hand and pointed at the very eye-catching Ferris wheel. He said excitedly, "Mom, let's go ride the Ferris wheel." Then, Wen said with a little adult face, "I heard that if we ride the Ferris wheel together and make a wish at the top, we can be together forever." He wanted to be with his mother forever. Fu Yun did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Where did you hear this from?" He was young but mischievous. When Sai Yu heard this, he flicked Wen's little head with his hand. "That's when you're sitting with the person you like." Wen said confidently, "Mom is the person I like the most." He was not a 3-year-old child. Of course, he knew that the Ferris wheel said that one could make a wish between lovers, but it did not say that it could not be between family members. Family members could also make a wish to be together forever. In this life, if he lived to be 80 years old, his mother would have to live to be 100 years old. This way, they would be together forever. Say this to your future wife. Wen puffed up his face and said unhappily, "Even if I have a wife, Mom is still the person I like the most." He would not be like other people who forgot about their mother after having a wife. He would treat his wife well, and he would also treat his mother well. He did not believe that his taste was so bad that he would fall in love with a wife who could not get along with such a good mother. Fu Yun was elated when she heard this. She felt that regardless of whether Wen could do it in the future, it was worth it to hear him say this sentence now. Fu Yun smiled and said, "Mom will not be a third wheel in the future." She did not want to be an evil mother-in-law. In the future, when Wen had a family, she would not be disliked and would be a good mother-in-law who understood things. However, when she thought about how Wen would have a wife in the future, she felt sad and gratified. She hoped that her family's pig would be able to get a good cabbage. In the end, they went to ride the Ferris wheel. As there were 5 of them, Fu Yun, Wen, and Sai Yu sat in the same carriage. They played until 9 o'clock in the evening before returning home to have a good meal. For the next 2 days, whatever Wen wanted to do, Fu Yun agreed to it when she thought about how he would be going to kindergarten soon. Wen was very happy and everyone agreed to his requests. He was so happy that he rolled around. Soon, it was the day of kindergarten. On this day, not only Fu Yun, even Uncle Guo and Sai Yu personally sent Wen to school. Today was the first day of school, and it was very significant. It was rare for Fu Yun to dress up meticulously. She also dressed Wen up like a little prince who walked out of a fairy tale and vowed to make him the most handsome little brat in the kindergarten. In order to let Wen leave a good impression on the little classmates, Fu Yun put in a lot of effort and specially baked a box of bear biscuits for him to share with the little classmates and make good friends. 2 cars stopped at the school gate. Fu Yun, Wen, and the rest got out of the car. There was a group of adults and children at the gate, and it was very lively. Fu Yun held Wen's hand and walked forward. Sai Yu, who was wearing sunglasses and a disguise, walked on the other side and held Wen's hand. Uncle Guo looked around and nodded secretly. This kindergarten was not bad. "Hello, Miss Fu. You are here." A young girl walked over and greeted them with a warm smile. "Hello, Teacher Su." Teacher Su was the teacher of Wen's small class. In the future, she and 2 other teachers would be in charge of Wen's kindergarten. Wen looked up and greeted obediently, "Teacher Su." "Hello, Wen." Teacher Su's gaze landed on the tall man at the side. "Is this Wen's father?" "Hello. Hello, Teacher Su. My surname is Sai. Mr. Sai." Fu Yun saw that Sai Yu actually acquiesced and hurriedly wanted to deny it, but Sai Yu had already started chatting with Teacher Su. "Do you want to send the child to the classroom now? How is the school's curriculum arranged? What about the daily schedule and outdoor activities? Can we parents watch how the child goes to class today? How many children are in a class?" Teacher Su answered patiently. Fu Yun missed the opportunity to explain. It felt weird to interrupt and explain again. She could only gloomily skip this topic. Forget it. Anyway, Sai Yu would not come to the kindergarten in the future. If it was a misunderstanding, then so be it. Teacher Sue would probably forget about it in a few days. Our child is naughty. If she causes any trouble in school, tell us parents immediately. We will definitely teach her well. Of course. Teacher Sue brought the parents to visit the school's classrooms. Before they reached the classroom, they heard crying. Teacher Sue hurriedly said and hurriedly went to the classroom to help calm the children. Fu Yun and the others were a few steps behind and arrived at the classroom door. The one who cried the loudest was a fair and chubby child. He was hugging the thigh of a man in a suit and leather shoes and howling. Fu Yun saw the man's face turn black. Wen pursed her lips. These little brats were not weaned. It was just going to school. What was there to cry about? It was too childish. Chapter 68. The children's cries shook the heavens, rising and falling one after another, lingering in the air. Fu Yun Ruo lowered her head to look at her child. Children all had a herd mentality. When one child cried, the other children would cry as well. However, Wen was not affected at all. His little expression was cool. Teacher Sue quickly went to coax the children. She and the lifestyle teacher were very experienced. They could tell which children were really crying and which were just following the crowd. They quickly coaxed the group of children. Kang, who was crying the loudest, barely stopped crying. However, when he saw that his father was about to leave, he immediately pouted and continued crying. He did not want to go to kindergarten. The children who had just stopped crying continued crying. Kang's father had a headache from the crying. Then, he said to Kang, "Look, your little brother is not crying. Aren't you embarrassed to cry?" Kang, who was crying with his head raised and eyes closed, opened his eyes when he heard that. He saw his little brother looking at him curiously. His little brother looked better than the prettiest little princess he had ever seen. Kang sniffed and wiped his tears heroically. Then, he walked over and held Wen's hand. Little brother, my name is Kang. What's your name?" "My name is Wen." Wen looked up and felt a little depressed. He realized that the children in the class seemed to be taller than him. When would he grow up? It was too worrying. Little brother Wen. When Kang saw such a beautiful little brother, he immediately threw his thoughts of not going to kindergarten to the back of his mind. He pulled Wen and walked into the classroom happily. Wen waved at Fu Yun Ruo and the others, then followed Kang into the classroom. "Mom, you can go back. Come and pick me up in the afternoon. Little brother, sit here." Kang's seat was next to him. He also sat in his seat and said happily, "I'll sit with little brother. Don't worry, I'll protect you in kindergarten in the future." The little girl, who was wearing a pink sweater and gauze dress and playing with a doll, looked up and looked over. "You look like my Prince Charming." Lei looked at him curiously and said in a childish voice, "My Prince Charming is Wen. What's your name?" Kang said to Lei, "Brother's name is Wen. You look like my Prince Charming, even your name is the same." Lei clapped her hands happily. "Let me tell you, my idol Wen is the most handsome little prince. When I grow up, I want to marry him." Lei only remembered that she used to like a little Prince Charming on TV, but she hadn't seen him for half a year. Children tended to be forgetful. Even now, she still remembered the little Prince Charming's appearance and name. It was true love. When Lei spoke very loudly. The kindergarten ended at 4:30 p.m. When they arrived at the kindergarten, it was 4:15 p.m. It was exactly 15 minutes early. This was the school entrance. There were already many parents waiting there. Fu Yun got out of the car and happened to see the parents of Wen's classmates gathering together to talk. Soon, it was 4:30 p.m. Not long after, the teachers walked out with groups of children who had lined up. Fu Yun saw her son among the children at a glance. Wen was the shortest child in the class and was first in line. Fu Yun went over and verified the information with Teacher Sue. Fu Yun noticed that Wen was listless and felt anxious. What was wrong with Wen? Could he have been bullied? "Mom, Wen saw Fu Yun and became a little more energetic, but he was still listless. She held Wen's hand. "What's wrong with Wen?" Teacher Su said. "Wen is doing very well in school. Many children like to play with him." Teacher Su did not know why he was so listless after school. She had been paying attention to Wen at all times. He was not bullied. He was quite happy when he was playing games previously. Wen shook her hand. "Mom, let's go home." "Okay." Fu Yun held Wen's hand and got into the car. She asked with concern, "What did the baby do in school? Can you share it with Mom?" Wen was in low spirits. "I don't want to go to kindergarten." When Fu Yun heard this, she asked anxiously, "What's wrong? Did the other children bully you?" Wen shook his head. "No one bullied me." "Then, can you tell Mom why you don't want to go to kindergarten?" Wen sighed and said sternly, "Kindergarten is too childish. Most of the time, I play games. I want to study." Playing games was a waste of his time. Most importantly, he was actually very happy playing games. It was all because the environment had eroded his thoughts and assimilated him. He was clearly here to study. Fu Yun. She never expected that it would be for this reason. "Mom, I want to go to primary school." Wen thought for a moment. "Let's go to the 4th grade." Fu Yun said earnestly, "Baby, primary school is not something you can go to just because you want to. Although you are very capable, you still have to be down to earth and take one step at a time." Although Fu Yun taught Wen a lot of words and numbers, she was not a teacher after all. Without a system to teach him, Wen could not go to primary school at all. Even if he could go to primary school, she would not let him go so early. Think about it. The 4th grade is full of big brothers and sisters. Their desks are so high. If you sit on the chair, you can't even show your little head. You can't even see what the teacher is writing on the blackboard. How are you going to study? Wen. He looked at his small arms and legs and sighed sadly. Fu Yun said gently, "Kindergarten will also teach you knowledge. Today is the first day of school. The teacher wants you to get familiar with each other and familiarize yourself with the environment. That's why you played more games. Think about it, didn't you quickly become good friends with your classmates after playing the game? Do you want to play with your good friends again tomorrow?" Wen hesitated. Was kindergarten like this? Kindergarten pays attention to education and fun. When you play games, will the teacher teach you knowledge? That was true. You can't think that kindergarten is not good just based on your first impression. How about this? You can go to kindergarten for another 1 or 2 weeks. If you still feel that you can't learn knowledge in kindergarten, we'll think of another way. Wen thought for a moment and felt that his mother made a lot of sense. Hence, he nodded. Okay. After resolving this matter, Wen's mood instantly improved. "Mom, let me tell you." Kindergarten. Fu Yun smiled when she heard Wen's energetic little voice. After 8 o'clock, Sayu came back from outside and came to see how Wen was doing on his first day of school. At this time, Fu Yun took the child out for a walk. The green environment in the villa area was well done. It was brightly lit and there was a children's playground. Wen giggled as she followed the older child up and down the castle. Fu Yun stood outside and watched. When Sayu came over, he saw Lin Ji standing beside Fu Yun. The two of them were talking and laughing. Lin Ji's voice was slightly excited. "Really? That's great. I'll definitely be there on time. Ruo. Mr. Yu." Sayu walked over and stood quietly between the two of them. Then, he smiled at Lin Ji and said, "Mr. Lin, what a coincidence." Fu Yun and Lin Ji were only separated by a person's distance. Sayu came in sideways and was very close to Fu Yun. She took 2 steps back and looked up. "Mr. Sai." Lin Ji's smile faded slightly and he greeted him politely. Sayu took a step back towards Fu Yun, forming a clear distinction between them. "What were you talking about just now?" Lin Ji smiled faintly and said, Yun invited me to attend the opening ceremony of her flowerbed." "Yes, you should be invited. Everyone will welcome you." Lin Ji. He seemed to be careless. Yoon Yoon also promised that I can go to the villa's greenhouse to see the orchids she's raising. Speaking of which, I'm the first fan to see the orchids with my own eyes. It's such an honor. Ha! Sayu chuckled. He was the first fan to see the orchids with his own eyes. Wasn't he thinking too much? Fu Yun. Was this how friends got along with each other at first sight? Wasn't this clearly a tit for tat? Yoon Yoon, can I take a few photos when the time comes? Lin Ji walked past Sayu and stood in front of Fu Yun. Of course. Wen looked up and saw the three adults. She stopped playing, and stopped exercising and quickly ran over. Uncle Yu. Sayu carried the child over his head and spun him around before holding him in his arms. Fu Yun asked, Wen, aren't you playing anymore? Wen shook her head and emphasized, I'm exercising. He wanted to grow taller as soon as possible. Yes, Mommy was wrong. Baby is exercising. Fu Yun saw that it was about time and prepared to go back. Lin Ji said, I'm going back too. They could go together. They lived in the same neighborhood and the chances of meeting were quite high. Fu Yun and Lin Ji met a few more times and knew each other's situation. Lin Ji's house was not far from Fu Yun's house. It was only a few buildings away. Fu Yun and Lin Ji walked in front while Sayu carried Wen and walked a step or two behind. Wen looked at them again and again. She leaned close to Sayu's ear and whispered, Uncle Yu, is Uncle Lin trying to woo my mommy? Sayu slowed down and put some distance between them before whispering, he wants to be your stepfather. Sayu thought that with how much Fu Yun valued Wen, if Wen firmly opposed it, he would not be able to woo her no matter how hard he tried. Wen sized up Lin Ji and hesitated before saying reluctantly, if mommy likes it, then it's okay. Sayu. As expected, sons were not considerate. Chapter 69. As soon as Wen said that, he regretted it a little. However, he was a little older and was no longer that insecure person. Uncle Lin looked like someone who knew how to dote on people. He was not as immature and unreliable as Uncle Shu. Although he wanted to monopolize his mother, he also hoped that his mother would have a confidant by her side. His mother loved him so much that she would not neglect him just because she had a new family. However, when he thought about how his mother had a new home and might have a baby in the future, and that he would not be his mother's only child, Wen felt depressed. Wen twisted his chubby body to get off the ground. After Sayu placed him on the ground, he immediately ran between the two of them. Wen held Fu Yun Ruo's hand. Mom. Lin Ji patted Wen's head and revealed a happy smile. He did not feel that Wen was disturbing them. Instead, he felt that Wen was getting close to him. Sayu took a step forward and stood beside Fu Yun Ruo. How is Wen doing in the kindergarten? Are you used to it? Fu Yun Ruo nodded. Yes, it's pretty good. That's good. This kindergarten has a good evaluation in the circle. Wen's habits are pretty good. Fu Yun Ruo could tell that although the school fees were expensive, from the parents who sent their children to this kindergarten, most of them were either rich or respectable. To be able to be chosen by so many parents, this kindergarten was also outstanding. I know that kindergarten. My niece is studying there. Lin Ji interrupted naturally. That's good. After chatting for a while, Fu Yun Ruo and Wen arrived home. The mother and son said good night to the two adults and entered the house. The little guy ran and jumped, and his body was covered in sweat. Fu Yun Ruo brought Wen into the bathroom and got a basin of hot water for Wen to wipe her face, hands, and back. Then, she changed into her pajamas. After staying with Fu Yun for 2 nights, Wen took the initiative to go to her room to sleep alone. He felt that he had grown up and could no longer sleep with adults. Fu Yun brought Wen back to his room and coaxed him to sleep. Wen lay on the bed and looked at Fu Yun. She could not help but call out, Mom. Wen wanted to ask if her mother was getting married. Was it Uncle Lin? But in the end, she didn't ask and closed her eyes. Fu Yun Ruo gently patted Wen's small body. She felt that Wen seemed to want to say something to her, but he closed his eyes and slept. Fu Yun Ruo did not disturb him. After the child fell asleep, she turned off the lights, leaving only a small lamp on the bedside. Then, she went out quietly. Since then, Wen went to kindergarten obediently every day and no longer said that she did not want to go. He found kindergarten quite interesting. He could learn some things and had many friends to play with. It was different from playing together in Shanghe village. He could play more in kindergarten and learn some knowledge. Wen found one of his shortcomings. He only knew some simple words and simple questions in English. He found that the children could speak other languages other than English fluently, such as Italian and French. Wen could not understand. He was stunned. He did not have the chance to go to kindergarten in his previous life. The primary school he went to was also very messy and bad. He ran away before he finished primary school and followed others to the film studio to earn money. Although he learned some things on his own later on, he did not go to school. He was a bad student who did not even have a primary school diploma. It turned out that even 4- or 5-year-old children were so outstanding. They spoke a series of foreign languages so fluently. Wen did not have a sense of superiority. He even felt a sense of urgency. If he could not compare to these children in the kindergarten exam, he would lose a lot of face. Wen was on the right track. Fu Yunruo put more energy into the flower garden. Soon, it was the day of the flower garden's opening. Fu Yunruo held a low-key but not too low-key opening ceremony. Low-key meant that she only invited her family and friends. Low-key meant that she had many family and friends, and many of them were elites and celebrities in the industry. After chatting with Brother Fatty and the others in the livestream circle, she sent out invitations one by one. Those who were in the capital and nearby would personally attend. Those who were far away would also attend the opening ceremony. There were also her senior brothers and sisters, the people Uncle Guo knew, the business partners she knew, and Brother Yuan and the others. Fu Yunruo only realized that she had so many friends that she could confide in. They were all reliable people. She had never been more aware that she was no longer alone in this world. Sai Yu arrived early, but he knew that his face was not suitable to meet passers-by. Otherwise, it would be easy for him to steal the limelight. Therefore, he had been staying in the inner circle to help entertain the guests. An old man with white hair and wearing a traditional tang suit with a walking stick got out of the car. Beside him was a personal assistant wearing glasses. "Old Guo, you're finally willing to come out of your corner of the mountain?" The first thing the old man said when he saw Uncle Guo was to mock him impolitely. Uncle Guo's temper was not bad at all. Instead, he was proud. "My student insisted that I come out. She's so filial to me. I'm not like you. Everyone I meet is heartless. Have you cultivated the supreme grade regal orchid?" "I haven't cultivated it, but my Ruoruo is quite lucky. She's only been in the orchid industry for 3 or 4 years, and she's already cultivated a supreme grade mutated lotus petal orchid. Ruoruo, let me introduce you." In addition to selling flowers and related products, they also took on some business such as landscaping and landscaping for offices. Some office buildings needed green plants. Every year, they needed many indoor potted plants. After negotiating the contract, they would be a fixed source of customers. Fu Yunruo immediately posted a recruitment notice on the second day after the opening ceremony and recruited 2 more shop assistants. Wen went to kindergarten happily every day. The business of the flower garden was also booming. Everything was going smoothly. Fu Yunruo was completely relieved. The string that had been pressing down on the bottom of her heart finally relaxed. Then, she fell ill. When it was time to get up, Fu Yunruo lay on the bed. She was dizzy and had a stuffy nose. She felt weak all over. Ever since she came to this world, she had not fallen ill. This time, she fell ill with a vengeance. She almost could not get out of bed. If Wen saw her walking out in this state, he would probably be shocked. Fu Yunruo was also worried that she would pass the illness to him. She endured the discomfort and sent a message to Chen Shengnan, asking her to send Wen to school. She explained to him that there was an emergency at the flower garden and that she had rushed over early in the morning, so she could not send him off. Qian Shengnan immediately asked Fu Yunruo what was wrong. It's nothing. It's just a small cold. I'll go to the hospital later to get some medicine. Otherwise, it won't be good if the child is infected. Fu Yunruo did not even open the door and directly replied to the message. Qian Shengnan was a little relieved when she heard that, but she still wanted to confirm it with her own eyes. However, at this moment, there was movement in Wenwen's room. Qian Shengnan turned around and saw Wenwen skipping out of the room. He had already developed the habit of waking up on time every morning. He no longer needed his mother to wake him up every day. Sister Shengnan, good morning. Good morning. Wenwen ran downstairs and did not see his mother. He looked around strangely. Where's Mom? Qian Shengnan walked down the stairs. Something happened at the flower garden. Your mother rushed over early in the morning. I'll send Wenwen to school today, okay? Wenwen was a little disappointed when he heard that, but he was still very sensible. He did not make any noise. He asked with concern, what's the matter? I don't know. You can ask Mom when she comes back tonight. Wenwen nodded and did not say anything else. It was just that breakfast did not taste good. Sigh. Wenwen finished his breakfast and jumped down from the chair. I'm done eating, Sister Shengnan. Okay, then let's go to school. Wenwen walked out of the house and stood by the roadside, waiting for the car to drive over. Sai Yu came back from training and saw Wenwen standing alone with a small school bag. He asked in confusion, Wenwen, where's your mother? Uncle Yu. Wenwen sighed worriedly. Mom went to the flower garden. He did not know what had happened. Sai Yu raised his eyebrows. Before he could ask more, Qian Shengnan's car had already stopped by the roadside. Wenwen went forward to open the car door. Sai Yu opened it first and then helped to fasten the seatbelt. Qian Shengnan saw Sai Yu help but did not get out of the car. Her expression was calm, but her heart was anxious. She was still worried about Fu Yun and could only ask Sai Yu to take care of her. She hinted, Mr. Yu, since you're here, Yun Ruo would like to ask you to help take care of the orchids in her greenhouse. Sai Yu nodded. He felt strange. If Fu Yun had not always treasured her flowers, why would she not let him and Wenwen touch them? Before he could think about it, Wenwen waved her chubby little hands at him. Goodbye, Uncle Yu. Chapter 70. Sai Yu watched the car leave before turning to go to the Fu family's house next door. Qian Shengnan had just given the key to the Fu family's house to Sai Yu, so he opened the door and went in. He walked around the courtyard and went to the greenhouse to take a look, but he didn't touch Fu Yunruo's flowers. He felt that if he touched her flowers, Fu Yunruo would hurt him badly. Not long after, he received a message on his phone. It was from Qian Shengnan, and it was a very short sentence. She asked him to check on Fu Yunruo. She was at home. She didn't go to the flower bed. If Fu Yunruo didn't send Wenwen off and even lied to him that she wasn't home, the problem must be very serious. Sai Yu immediately entered the house and went up to the second floor before knocking on Fu Yunruo's door. Although he had entered Fu Yunruo's room every day on the day he helped her move, he knew which room it was. Fu Yunruo was in a daze. She had fallen asleep after sending the message to Qian Shengnan. When she heard the incessant knocking on the door, she thought that she had slept for a long time and that Qian Shengnan had already returned after sending Wenwen off. She lifted the blanket and got out of bed. Just as she stood up, she felt a blur in front of her eyes. She staggered to open the door. Shengnan. Her voice was hoarse and weak. Fu Yunruo held onto the door frame and didn't even have the strength to look up. Sai Yu saw that Fu Yunruo's lips were pale and her face was abnormally red. His expression changed instantly. He stepped forward and carried Fu Yunruo in his arms before walking in quickly. You're sick. Fu Yunruo, who was holding onto the door, suddenly felt the world spin around her. She was dizzy for a long time before she slowly regained her senses. Was Shengnan such a boyfriend? Why did his voice sound so much like a man's? Fu Yunruo leaned weakly against his strong chest and raised her head with difficulty. Mr. Yu, she instinctively struggled, but her whole body was weak, so her movements could be ignored. Sai Yu said in a low voice, "Don't talk. Rest well." Fu Yun's reaction was much slower now that she was sick. She only reacted after she was placed on the bed and covered with a thick blanket. Her voice was weak as she said, "Thank you." Sai Yu placed her on the bed and touched her forehead. It was burning hot. Fu Yun Ruo's mind was in a mess. She lay on the bed and fell asleep again. Before she lost consciousness, she seemed to hear Sai Yu saying something. Sai Yu called the family doctor and asked him to hurry over before he hung up the phone. Then, he looked at Fu Yun's weak face and frowned. Seeing that she wasn't sleeping well, Sai Yu went to get a basin of water and a small handkerchief. When he came back, he saw that Fu Yun had lifted the blanket and her face was red with sweat. Sai Yu covered her with the blanket. Her fever had already reached 40 degrees Celsius. She was lucky that it didn't turn into pneumonia. Her fever was under control after the injection, but what if her illness relapsed? Therefore, Dr. Meng could only stay for now. When she opened her eyes again, she was still lying on her bed. However, there was a shelf beside her bed with a bottle hanging upside down. She subconsciously moved, but her right hand couldn't move. A low voice came from beside her. "Don't move." Fu Yun was a little more awake at this moment. She turned her head and saw Sai Yu sitting by the bed and pressing her hand. There was a needle on the back of her hand and she was on an 4 drip. "Mr. Yu." Fu Yun's voice was hoarse. "Why are you here?" Sai Yu looked at her and said, "You're sick." He let go of her hand and poured a cup of warm water for Fu Yun. Fu Yun knew that she was on an 4 drip and didn't move. She waited for Sai Yu to bring a cup of water over before she took it with her other hand that wasn't on an 4 drip. "I'm sorry to have caused you trouble." Fu Yun didn't expect that Sai Yu would take care of her here. Sai Yu avoided her hand and sat on the bed to help her up. "It's not convenient for you now. I'll feed you." Sai Yu's words were irrefutable. He held Fu Yun in his arms and fed her water. Fu Yun didn't dare to move. She quickly took the cup and drank half of it before saying, "Thank you." Sai Yu let her continue lying down and put the cup aside. "How am I?" "You have a fever of 40 degrees. Now that your fever has subsided a little, you have to be careful not to rise again." Oh, no wonder she still felt soft all over and hot. Fu Yun looked outside and was a little anxious. "What time is it now?" 3 in the afternoon. Fu Yun heard and heaved a sigh of relief. It wasn't 4:30 yet. She almost didn't have time to pick up when. Sai Yu knew what she was thinking. "You need to rest more." Fu Yun said, "I feel much better." She was shocked when she recalled her dizzy state in the morning. However, she felt much more energetic now. Sai Yu said again, "You need to rest more." Sai Yu knew that one of the causes of Fu Yun's illness was excessive fatigue. He was annoyed that he had only secretly provided some convenience and didn't interfere with her career. If he had helped a little more, she wouldn't have been so tired. She had been in the capital for so long, but the flesh on her face hadn't recovered. Now that she was sick, she was even weaker. This time, no matter what, he had to let her recover before talking about other things. Fu Yun. She didn't know why, but she felt guilty when she saw his gaze. "Yun Ruo, you're finally awake." Qian Shengnan knocked on the door and pushed it open. She heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Fu Yun had woken up. When she came back and saw Fu Yun's condition, she was really shocked. This wasn't as simple as an ordinary cold. Fortunately, she was worried and asked Mr. Sai Yu to take a look. If it weren't for the fact that Mr. Sai Yu's family's private doctor was very skilled and was able to quickly control his condition, as well as the complete set of medical equipment that he had brought, she would have sent him to the hospital. Fu Yun smiled embarrassedly. "I've made you worry. It's good that you're fine." After Qian Shengnan confirmed that she was fine, she quickly went out and came up with a bowl of plain porridge. "You haven't eaten for a day. You must be starving, right?" Fu Yun actually didn't have much of an appetite, but she knew that she had to eat something appropriately to recover quickly. Therefore, she forced herself to eat half a bowl. She couldn't eat any more. Sai Yu and Qian Shengnan persuaded her for a while. Seeing that she really couldn't eat, they didn't force her. Not long after, an old doctor in a white coat came in. He looked at Fu Yun with kindness and friendliness. "Hello, Miss Fu. My surname is Meng. I'm Mr. Sai Yu's family doctor." "Hello, Dr. Meng." Fu Yun greeted and thanked him again. Fu Yun couldn't help but look at Sai Yu. "Mr. Yu actually had a family doctor?" Sai Yu said, "Sometimes you need to adjust your body shape for filming. It's safer to have a doctor." When Fu Yun heard this, she felt that it made sense. Acting was very difficult. Sometimes the plot required her to be thin, and sometimes she needed to be fat. It was safer to have a doctor by her side. Then, should she also prepare a family doctor? Wen would also need a family doctor when she was filming in the future. Wen, Dr. Meng, will I recover in half an hour? She still had to fetch Wen home. Dr. Meng. The corners of his mouth twitched. "No matter how good my medical skills are, I can't make a patient recover in a day." Fu Yun couldn't help but pat her head. She felt that she was going to become stupid from this illness. What kind of silly question was this? If she could recover so quickly, it would be a miracle. But what about Wen? Sai Yu said, "Just let Qian Shengnan fetch her." Fu Yun hesitated. She didn't send Wen to school in the morning. If she didn't pick her up after school, Wen would have objections. Wen is a sensible child. If he knew that you dragged your sick body to fetch him, wouldn't he be even sadder? Fu Yun thought about it and felt that it made sense, so she agreed. She nestled in bed like an obedient and cute kitten. "Mr. Yu, I'm much better now. If you have something to do, you can do it. I can do it alone." Although she didn't know how long Sai Yu had been taking care of her for, she was now awake and didn't need to be taken care of. There was no need to waste other people's time. Sai Yu's expression didn't change as she said lightly, "I'm fine." Oh, Fu Yun actually wanted to say something, but at this moment, she couldn't quite say it. She thought that perhaps she was a little weak and pretentious because she was sick, so she wanted someone to accompany her. Fu Yun was still sick after all. After lying down for a while, she started to feel sleepy again and fell asleep after a while. Sai Yu didn't disturb her. Seeing that there was still less than half of the drip to go, she sat quietly by the side. Dr. Meng tactfully left at some point. Chapter 71. Wen followed the teacher out and saw Qian Shengnan immediately. He looked around but didn't see his mother. "Sister Shengnan, where's Mom?" "Mom has something to do and can't make it." "I'm here to pick Wen up," Qian Shengnan said. Then, she confirmed with the teacher and took Wen to where the car was parked. Wen was instantly filled with worry. He looked up at Qian Shengnan and asked, "Sister Shengnan, what happened to Mom?" Wen knew that if it wasn't for something, his mother would definitely have come to pick him up. Qian Shengnan thought that she wouldn't be able to hide it from Wen when he got home, so she said, "Mom is sick. She's resting at home now." Wen was instantly anxious when he heard that. He quickly climbed into the car and urged, "I want to go back to see Mom." Qian Shengnan saw that he quickly fastened his seatbelt and quickly got into the car to drive back. Although the child kept urging her to drive faster, Qian Shengnan still paid attention to the traffic rules and didn't exceed the speed limit. Wen felt very guilty. His mother must have been sick in the morning, but he hadn't thought of that. She had been sick for the whole day and he hadn't been by her side. The school was only a 10-minute drive from the neighborhood, but Wen felt that it was so long. He anxiously waited and finally saw the neighborhood. When the car stopped at the entrance, he quickly got out of the car and ran into the house. The door was open, so Wen pushed the door open and ran in. Sai Yu saw that Wen's short legs were running so fast that he didn't even see her standing at the side. He only wanted to run upstairs quickly. When he passed by Sai Yu, he quickly scooped Wen up. Wen anxiously flailed his arms and legs and struggled. "Uncle Yu, put me down. I want to see Mom." Sai Yu said, "Your mother is sleeping. Are you trying to wake her up by rushing up so recklessly?" Wen stopped struggling when he heard that. He looked up at Sai Yu, his big eyes full of anxiety. "Uncle Yu, Is Mom okay? Sai Yu's voice softened. I'm fine. I'm just too tired. That's why I caught a cold and had a fever. I need more rest now. Let's sneak in and take a look, but we can't disturb Mom. Wen nodded heavily. Sai Yu carried Wen upstairs and gently opened the door. He walked in quietly and stopped a few steps away from the bed. Wen opened her eyes wide. At this moment, Fu Yun's complexion was much better than it was in the morning, but she was still a little haggard. However, Wen had never seen her mother so weak. Her eyes were filled with tears. Was it too hard for her mother to raise him? After reading it, Sai Yu left quietly with Wen. Then, they started a conversation between men. Sai Yu felt that raising a child also had to teach him to be reasonable. Perhaps it was because she had not been sick for too long, but this illness was quite serious and did not recover quickly. Wen accompanied her at home for 4 days, including the weekend. In the end, under Fu Yun's insistence, he could only go to school with a heart full of worries. Because his mother was sick, Wen was not in the mood to play at school. He also became quiet and steady. He would only be more lively when his close friends, Kang, Lei, and a few others came to play. Every day, he looked forward to leaving school early and going home early to accompany his mother. Once school was over, Wen was the most active one. Today, he and his classmates followed Teacher Su as usual. However, when they went out, they did not see Sister Shengnan and Grandpa Guo. Instead, they saw a few unfamiliar acquaintances. If they had not appeared in front of him, Wen would have really forgotten about them. After all, every day was so exciting. How could he have time to think about those people who made him uncomfortable? The moment he saw them, Wen looked as if he was facing a formidable enemy. His little chubby face instantly became serious. Fu Zonghong walked in front of Teacher Su and Wen. His tone was cold and hard. I'm Fu Wen's grandfather. I'm here to bring him home. Wen, a harmless-looking woman at the side, had a kind face and said warmly, Hello, Teacher Wen. Then, she looked at Wen with a kind gaze. Wen, do you still remember your grandfather? Wen unconsciously grabbed Teacher Su's hand. His hair stood on end, but he straightened his small body and tried his best to glare over. He was not afraid of them. Teacher Su looked at the two beautiful strangers suspiciously. I'm sorry, I've never seen you before. I can't hand the child over to you. When the school handed over the child to the parents, to prevent accidents, they would confirm with the parents that there would be a designated person to pick up the child. If that person could not come in time, they would have to change the person. The parents would have to confirm with the school personally. If some stranger suddenly appeared out of nowhere to claim the child, or if this relative was not a good person, wouldn't they harm the child if they handed the child over easily? Wen's mother had been sick recently. The people who came to pick her up were her assistant and grandfather, not this grandfather whom they had never seen before. Moreover, looking at Wen's resistance, it was not certain if this person was her grandfather. Fang Wanting said, Wen, your grandpa Guo's car broke down, so he can't pick you up. We happened to be on the way, so we came over. When heard this, he understood that Grandpa Guo was already under their control. He had to obediently follow them. Otherwise, they could not ensure Grandpa Guo's safety. This was a blatant threat. Wen immediately let go of Teacher Su's hand. I'll go with you. He could not hurt Grandpa Guo and Sister Shengnan. Teacher Su was still worried. Wen, is this really your grandfather? Wen looked up at Fu Zonghong and reluctantly replied, yes. A man who looked like Fu Zonghong's assistant passed a name card to Teacher Su. This is Chairman Fu's name card. If you have any questions, you can contact us. Teacher Su took a few more glances and finally recognized that this was a successful person who often appeared in the finance industry. However, this was not a reason to disobey the rules. I'd better confirm with Wen's mother first. When heard this, he felt that his mother was still sick. He could not bother her with these things. What if his mother's condition worsened because of anger? He quickly grabbed Fu Zonghong's hand and dragged him forward. Teacher Su, Mom will definitely know. We'll leave first. If you're really worried, you can send Uncle Yu a message. Wen did not believe that a famous person like Fu Zonghong would do anything bad to him if he took him away in broad daylight. Since that was the case, he would take his mother's place and barge into this tiger's den. Fu Zonghong's brows were originally tightly knitted together. When Wen's soft and chubby hand suddenly grabbed his fingers, he could not help but tremble and involuntarily followed behind them. Teacher Su watched as Wen dragged him away quickly. She did not even manage to stop him. After some thought, she felt that she should inform Mr. Yu whom Wen had mentioned. Teacher Su was not oblivious to what was going on outside. She knew quite a bit about the Fu family's dispute that was spreading like wildfire online. If Wen's mother and Wen were to face the Fu family alone, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. She hoped that Mr. Yu, who had a close relationship with Wen and her son, would be of help. Wen followed Fu Zonghong and the rest to the car. His little face immediately tensed up and he said coldly, "I'll go with you. You're not allowed to hurt Grandpa Guo and Sister Shengnan." Fu Zonghong's face, which had just calmed down, instantly darkened. He was furious. Bastard, however, when he saw the eyes that were exactly the same as Fu Yun's and the face that was 70 to 80% similar, he did not scold him in the end. Instead, he said unhappily, "What nonsense did your mother tell you? Am I the kind of person who breaks the law?" Fang Wanting said gently, "Your grandfather has always been concerned about you. He's a good person and would not do anything to hurt you or the people close to you." However, Wen was full of doubts. "Then my family's car really broke down. Did you guys do something behind the scenes?" Fang Wanting's face stiffened. Fu Zonghong said bluntly, "I got someone to stop it. He wanted to bring his grandson home and could not be bothered to argue with others. Are Grandpa Guo and the rest all right?" Fang Wanting comforted him again. "We won't hurt you." Fu Zonghong snorted coldly. He was obviously displeased with Wen's concern for outsiders. Wen was extremely annoyed. It was all his fault for thinking too much and taking the initiative to board the pirate ship. His little face tensed up. "Then why are you holding me hostage?" He looked out of the car window. The scenery outside was unfamiliar. It was not the way to send him home at all. Fu Zonghong was furious. "What do you mean by holding you hostage? I'm your grandfather. Is bringing you home a hostage?" Chapter 72. Fu Zonghong was furious. He heard that Fu Yun was bringing their son back to the capital to settle down, so he waited for her to express her goodwill. He had waited for so long, but he did not see her at all. If Wen Ping had not been persuading him, he would not have made this trip. She did not know what was good for her. However, when he met Wen's eyes, it was as if a basin of ice water had been poured over his anger, and it instantly cooled down. Fu Zonghong snorted coldly and turned his head to look out of the window. Fang Wanting said kindly, "Wen, don't think that your grandfather is fierce. He actually cares about you. He's just a paper tiger." Wen turned his head away. He would not admit that he had hurt his mother's heart. Wen said sternly, "I want to go home. Your mother will be here later. Be good." Was he going to inform his mother? Wen's brows furrowed tightly. How could he say that he cared about his mother and him? His mother had been sick recently, but they did not even let her go to the flower beds and allowed her to recuperate at home. If he really cared, why didn't he visit her personally? He even used this kidnapping method to force his mother to come over. Was he really trying to express goodwill and not start a feud? Although Wen reminded Teacher Su to contact Uncle Yu, what if she contacted his mother instead? Wouldn't his mother be anxious when she heard the news? Wen glanced at the woman who was smiling kindly. Could it be her idea? Wen was just a child, and it was not safe for him to go home without someone to send him home. Seeing that they would not send him home, he did not make a fuss. The car drove into a small district and stopped in front of a villa. Fang Wanting reached out to carry Wen out of the car, but Wen ducked down and got out of the car himself. Fang Wanting retracted her hand, but her smile did not change. She said gently, "This is the Fu residence." Wen looked around. Was this where his mother used to live? He looked up. "Didn't you say that this is my home?" Fang Wanting's smile did not change. "This is the Fu residence, and it's also your home." Fu Zonghong snorted coldly and walked into the house first. Wen walked in with her short legs and then heard the voice of the woman she hated the most. "Uncle, did you and Mom bring her back?" His voice was filled with joy. The next moment, Fang Shue's figure appeared in front of him. Wen, nice to meet you." Fang Shue's face was full of smiles, and her whole body was radiating kindness. She leaned over slightly and extended her hand to Wen. Wen stared at her hand and bared her white teeth. Fang Shui recalled the pain he felt when he was bitten, and subconsciously withdrew his hand. Wen revealed a cute smile. Fang Shui's smile froze. In her eyes, Wen was a little devil. Fang Wanting patted Fang Shui. "All right, don't scare the child." Then she looked at Wen. Wen did not have the patience to face the mother and daughter's hypocritical faces. He turned around and walked into the house. He walked to the sofa in the living room and climbed onto it to sit down. Fu Zonghong sat on the other side and looked at Wen. At the beginning, he was angry with this child. Fu Yun's unfilial daughter had really embarrassed him, and the existence of this child constantly reminded him of the stupid things that his unfilial daughter had done. But this child looked too much like Yun Ruo. It reminded him of Yun Ruo's childhood, when she was still an obedient child. Later on, he thought about it carefully. If Fu Yun could not take over Fu's enterprise, he could still work for more than 10 years. It was better to train this child well so that he could take over. Since the child had the surname Fu, he was a child of the Fu family. If he raised him well, he would not be like Fu Yun. He taught the child to be close to the family. No matter whether they were related by blood or not, they were still family. When he was not around in the future, Wamping would not be bullied. Fu Zonghong had not met such a young child for a long time and did not know how to communicate. He only knew how to ask awkwardly, "Are you hungry? Have some pastries. Do you want to watch cartoons?" Wen blinked and shook her head. "I want to go home. Take me home, or Mom will be worried." Fu Zonghong pulled a long face. "This is your home." "Yes, Wen. Although your mom has misunderstood us, we are still family." Fang Shui's voice was gentle. Wen thought in his heart, "Who is family with you? If we really live under the same roof, I will not be able to sleep." He jumped off the sofa and ran to Fu Zonghong's side. He hid by the sofa beside him and looked at Fang Shui with a pair of timid eyes. "You are a bad person." Then he looked up at Fu Zonghong pitifully. "She brought people to bully me and Mom. She is so fierce." Fang Shui's face stiffened and she suddenly felt wronged. She looked at Fu Zonghong and wanted to say something but stopped. Wen's eyes were filled with tears and she looked terrified and helpless. "Nonsense. Why would Shui Ruo bully you?" Fu Zonghong said instinctively. With Fu Yun's personality, it was good enough that she did not bully them. Wen sniffled and said timidly with a sobbing tone, "Everyone knows. There are even videos online." Fu Zonghong looked at the messy information online impatiently. When he heard Wen Ping say that the gossip reporters on the internet used their family matters as a topic of discussion, he immediately asked his subordinates to delete them. When he heard Wen say this, he immediately looked at Fang Shui. Fang Shui moved her lips, but before she could say anything, Fang Wanting said apologetically, "This is Shui Ruo's fault." She was so happy that she finally found her sister. Coincidentally, the boy from the Chang family was also there, so we went to look for Yun Ruo. "We didn't expect Yun Ruo to," Fang Wanting said it vaguely. Fu Zonghong immediately thought of Yun Ruo's hostility towards Shui Ruo. Wen Ping had also mentioned it to him. When the adults had a conflict, the child would side with the person close to him. Naturally, he would feel that his mother was being bullied. "It's my fault." Fang Shui looked like she wanted to get closer but didn't dare to. She said carefully, Wen, I apologize to you again. Can you forgive me?" Fu Zonghong felt that it was just a small matter. It was fine to talk things out. The child was still young and could be taught slowly. He lowered his head to look at Wen Wen and said in a lecturing tone, "As a man, you must have a correct view of right and wrong. Don't learn from. Your mother is prejudiced against people." Wen Wen didn't wait for him to finish speaking. She sat on the ground and cried miserably. Wen Wen thought to himself that no wonder his mother was being bullied so badly. Even he felt inferior to this mother and son. No, he couldn't fall. He had to return to the level he was at in his previous life. Therefore, he placed his hands on his chubby waist and said, "You're right. As a man, you must have a correct view of right and wrong. If your butt is crooked, don't think that you have the right to teach others." Wen Wen's voice was crisp and clear. She said in a crackling voice, as the saying goes, "The older you are, the more you learn. It's not too late to correct your crooked but while you're still alive. Although your heart and eyes are blind, it's not a terminal illness. If you can treat it as soon as possible. You're so young, where did you hear all this nonsense?" Fu Zonghong's anger soared to the heavens. "I'm telling the truth." Wen Wen stuck out her chubby belly and said, "You can't scold me just because I'm telling the truth. Do you know how to hit a child?" Wen Wen looked scared. "Fortunately, my mother isn't like you. Although she's innocent and easily bullied, at least she won't be fooled by others and live in a fake life." "Not necessarily." Wen Wen rolled her eyes and said, "Maybe she's enjoying it." "You. Old Fu, don't be angry. Children always speak carelessly. He's so young and doesn't even understand what he's saying. Old grandma, you sound like you're saying that someone else taught me to say this. Do you want him to think that it was Mom who taught me?" Wen Wen tilted her head and said innocently, "Old grandma, do you prefer a white lotus or a green tea? Is this how you talk to your elders?" Wen Wen looked at Fu Zonghong's angry expression and sighed in her heart. "Sigh, when is Uncle Yu coming to pick him up? It's so difficult for a child like him." Sai Yu, who Wen Wen was concerned about, arrived at the Fu family's house in no time. After receiving Teacher Su's call, he calmed her down and immediately called for the nearby bodyguards. He then got into the car and headed to the Fu family's house. In the car, he made a call to confirm that Chen Shengnan had only been involved in a small car accident. The front of the car had been hit and she was being pestered by the other party. There was nothing wrong with her. His gaze was cold. He hadn't seen the Fu family for a day and they were already up to no good. They were even targeting his son. Sai Yu had a smooth journey and arrived at the Fu family's house in no time. He looked at the tightly shut door and said calmly, "Break the door down." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.